A man with glasses vows his child will be an alchemist. A stern woman declares the child's destiny is to be a chef. An elderly woman insists the child will serve tea to nobility. The three argue fiercely over the child's future.
A sweet, pink-haired girl peeks from behind a rose bush.
News reports and safety alerts warn of a surge in deaths and disappearances. An ambulance races through the streets with a loud wee-woo. At a crash scene, a narrator reveals a common link between the recent victims. A discovery in their phone records. A person lies lifeless on the street amidst blood and shattered glass. Paramedics arrive. As it's revealed, all victims received a strange spam message about transmigration insurance. Paramedics urgently try to help the victim, calling for a stretcher. In her last moments, the injured woman thinks of her family, a pained throb echoing as she taps yes on the insurance offer. And then everything goes dark with a final beep. In the darkness, a voice calls out, telling her to wake up. She awakens with a blink, disoriented, as a voice calls her Reader 15,617. She finds herself in a bustling, unfamiliar place, completely bewildered. A screen dings, showing her transmigration assessment results for a novel called Revolutionary Princess Eve with F-class difficulty. An administrator congratulates a different young woman on receiving an easy F-class novel for her transmigration. The other woman is blissful while the short-haired woman watches, expressionless. With a sudden spring, a voice calls her number, startling her into a scream. A flying corgi with a tablet appears, panting happily. The corgi introduces himself as an assessor from the Transmigration Bureau, leaving the woman confused. Swallowing nervously, she questions the suddenness of it all. The corgi explains that the gods are adapting popular novels into content for the afterlife. The corgi elaborates that souls who die prematurely are sent to other worlds, showing scenes of various transmigration settings, and confirms she is likely to qualify. The corgi asks for her genre preference, but she remains silent. With sudden resolve, she declares she wants a child-care fantasy romance. A fiery passion for childcare novels blazes within her as she decides to finally enjoy a peaceful afterlife. She fantasizes about an easy life as an adored child, thinking it's the best genre of all. She rapidly recounts her tragic life of loss and mistreatment, which culminated in a sudden, unfair death and her greedy relatives now trying to take her rent deposit. She passionately pleads for a new life in a childcare story to finally experience love, promising to be a perfect protagonist. Her assessment deems complete, but her hopeful expression freezes in an instant. Her results are revealed, an S-difficulty action fantasy time loop novel called Infinite Returns to Save the World. The corgi celebrates her rare S-class result, but onlookers pity her, knowing the novel is infamous for its immense suffering. She internally despairs. Of all the novels, it had to be that one. A feeling of gloom descends as she remembers the dreaded novel's title. She recalls the story's grim plot, a world in ruin, saved only by the protagonist's endless, torturous cycle of death and rebirth. Overwhelmed with despair, she remembers how incredibly frustrating all the readers found the novel. Defeated, she asks what character she'll be, and the corgi cheerfully replies that she'll be a cute little girl with pink hair. The corgi hurries her toward the gate, but she protests in shock. The corgi is suddenly shocked by something it sees on its tablet. A divine light reveals she was the first person to purchase the Transmigration Insurance full package. The excited corgi flaps its wings, realizing her S-class assignment is because she's the full package. The crowd murmurs and clamors, intensely jealous of her full package purchase. Confused about what she bought, she's suddenly enveloped in a bright flash as the corgi begins her transmigration. The corgi sends her off with a divine blessing. She gasps in awe as she's swept away in a vortex of light and feathers. As she disappears in a flash of light, she screams, demanding to know what she bought. Arriving at a grand mansion, a notification dings, detailing her insurance benefits, a tutorial, extreme growth, and a cash deal. Through a window, a pink-haired girl is seen walking down a hall. As time begins to turn, a notification states that a mandatory tutorial period will begin, and the process may take some time. As a system loads, a pink-haired girl blinks awake, wondering why it's so noisy. With a sudden spring, she jolts upright in bed, utterly shocked by her new surroundings. Looking at her small hands, she pieces together her last memories, recalling that she died. As she rubs her face, she remembers the wicked corgi that sent her here. She dashes across the room with a determined stomp. Seeing her reflection, she shouts in disbelief, realizing she's truly been transmigrated. She gently touches her new soft face, taking in the quaint room around her. Admiring her doll-like appearance, she quickly accepts her new reality. Her joy fades as she pouts, upset that despite becoming a cute girl, this isn't the childcare novel she wanted. She flops to the floor in despair, realizing she's the servant's daughter in a villain's family, and feels her situation is hopeless. As she lies on the floor, her eyes catch a sudden flicker of light. A holographic map of Gillette Castle appears before her, warning her to watch out for the Count's spoiled son. She gasps in amazement, thrilled to have a manor map that feels just like a video game. The holographic display highlights the warning about Count Gillette's spoiled son. With a determined pum, she clenches her fist, shouting that she remembers him. She recalls the arrogant silhouette of the Count's son sitting upon a throne. Her memories confirm he was from a famed family, but bought his title because he lacked skill with a sword. She remembers he was nearly killed in a dungeon, but was saved by the kind-hearted protagonist. Peeking out a window, she recalls that the son insisted on repaying the favor. Looking at the grand manor, she anticipates the disastrous meeting between the spoiled son and the protagonist. She recalls how the young lord used the protagonist and then abandoned him. A somber image shows the protagonist walking away from the estate's gates, alone and betrayed. She then remembers a dungeon burst that engulfed the entire area, including the manor, in demonic flames. Back in the present, she recalls how frustratingly long that chapter of the novel was. The story warned that dungeons were spreading like tumors, capable of bursting anywhere and killing countless people. She despairs, wishing she knew the story better, but admitting she only read it in middle school during her dark romance phase. She cries out in protest to the system administrators, arguing that she can't be expected to have a photographic memory. The holographic map crackles and glitches with a sharp VZZT. The map shimmers, transforming into something new. She looks up, startled and curious about the sudden change. With a great schwoom, an enormous library materializes before her, its menu reading, Ultimate Library. She springs into the air, excitedly wondering if her pleas were actually heard. A ding sounds as a notification explains the library contains every book she legally acquired in her lifetime. Overjoyed, she realizes the novel she's trapped in must be here. Relieved, she bought the entire series. She searches through a pile of books from her past, including textbooks and other romance novels. Her eyes light up as she finally spots the book she needs, exclaiming, "I found it." She opens it to find a list confirming she owns every volume of Infinite Returns to Save the World. Clutching the book, she breathes a sigh of relief, convinced her odds of survival just got much better. A sly, determined look crosses her face. With eyes full of greed, she cheekily asks the system if there are any other perks. She tilts her head and hopefully asks, "Cash?" A whoosh echoes as a massive wave of gold coins erupts around her. With a dramatic da-dun, she stares, dumbfounded, at the mountain of money surrounding her. Sitting amidst piles of gold, she realizes in awe that this is her death benefit, 120 million in cash. Her eyes widen as she has a sudden, brilliant realization. A new system window flickers into view. The Transmigrator's item shop appears, promising special items to make surviving an S-class novel a breeze. Seeing the rows of shimmering items, she lets out an impressed, "Wow!" Gazing at the endless gold, she wonders if she can really use it to buy the items in the shop. A thoughtful expression crosses her face as she muses on the strange feeling of spending her own death benefit. With a soft plop, the pink-haired girl lands in her massive pile of gold. She happily declares it's time for some shopping, with her 120 million in cash. She reads a system message, relieved that she can purchase more cash later on. With a sudden da-dun, a combat skill package appears in the shop, and she exclaims that it's a must-buy. Knowing she's in a high-difficulty novel, she eagerly purchases the skill set. Another da-dun reveals a blessing of rapid growth in the shop, and she gasps, wanting to buy it too. Thinking she needs to level up her new skills, her attempt to buy is met with a ding, as the purchase is denied, leaving her confused. Blessing of extreme growth. Not for sale. A notification explains this blessing from the gods allows for 5 times the normal skill experience gain. She realizes the blessing is an exclusive part of her full insurance package, amazed to have an item that money can't buy. With a determined Batum of her heart, she hopes her skill package, growth, blessing, and library will be enough to survive. Clutching the system interface, she sits anxiously on the floor. Holding the book, she realizes that the protagonist's specific time loop sequence is critically important. An hourglass wrapped in thorns symbolizes the hero's painful, repeating fate. The novel's narration details the protagonist's suffering. Endless, painful returns where he is constantly deceived and betrayed, treated only as prey. She desperately prays to be in one of the later loops, reasoning that a stronger protagonist means a higher chance of her own survival. She clasps her hands hopefully, wishing for the best possible outcome. The story reveals a shocking twist. The protagonist is killed by a mysterious enemy right at the beginning, ending the loop instantly with a bloody slash, and she realizes in horror which sequence this is. She collapses with a great sprawl, wailing in despair over being trapped in the worst possible loop. She frets that if the protagonist dies so early, there will be no one left to kill the universe's most powerful murderer. With a determined clench of her fist, she questions if she can possibly succeed when the hero only becomes strong after the 70th loop. Stealing her expression, she tells herself to snap out of it, resolving that she must make it work somehow. With a quick rise, she pushes herself up from the floor. Standing with newfound determination, she declares that she can only rely on herself now. A dun sounds as her tutorial status appears, revealing over 3,000 days remaining and a grim penalty for failure, death. Shocked by the harsh penalty, she repeatedly taps on the system window, trying to contact an administrator. With a sudden burst, a brown-haired girl in a maid's uniform throws the door open, calling out, "Hey, Ailette!" Ailette is startled by the sudden intrusion, while the other girl smirks, saying she knew she'd find her hiding. The brown-haired girl turns and lets out a piercing scream, announcing to everyone that she's found Ailette. Ailette watches in confusion as another person stomps toward the room. With a loud slam, an imposing head maid storms in, calling Alet a lazy parasite and ordering her to the kitchen while the other girl watches with a smug look. The head maid gives Alet's arm a painful yank, dragging her from the room. With a sudden burst, a man with glasses and a pink-haired boy rush in to defend Alet, pleading that she's too young for kitchen work. Startled, Alet notices the boy has the same pink hair as her. The man with glasses begs the headmaid to reconsider. The pink-haired boy adds his worries, concerned that Alet might get hurt from the demanding work. As she's being pulled away, Alet has a sudden realization. These people must be her family. She looks back at them, the word family echoing in her mind with a mix of awe and wonder. The headmaid berates the boy, Prinz, for being away from his post and scolds the man, Mr. Rodeline, for spoiling his daughter. Prinz counters that the other girl, Nellie, is 11 and also not working, causing her to flinch defensively. The headmaid furiously argues that Nellie is being trained to serve tea and cannot risk harming her precious hands, as Nellie sneaks away. Threatening to report them to the Countess, the headmaid silences their protests, leaving Alet to look on helplessly. With a soft tap, Nellie gets Alet's attention. Nellie leans in with a whisper and a cruel snicker, taunting Alet by asking if she's scared of being slapped again. With a quiet tee-hee, Alet realizes this little devil has hit her before, and now she knows exactly who her enemies are. With the final done, the headmaid yells that she's had enough, threatening to send Alet to the laundry room. Mr. Rodelin looks horrified, thinking of the brutal labor in the laundry room that exhausts even the strongest servants. Taking a firm step forward, Alet calmly tells the headmaid that won't be necessary. Alet smiles brightly and volunteers to help in the kitchen, declaring it's time to clean up this mess now that she knows who's on whose side. Looking at her worried father and brother, she thinks that even though she doesn't know them, she can't bear to see them suffer. Alet beams, declaring with confidence that she'll do great. She recalls that the item shop sells non-combat skills too. A non-combat skill package appears, offering skills like cooking for 2 million cash. After buying it, she unlocks several kitchen skills at once, feeling the power surge through her hands. A determined, mischievous grin spreads across her face. With a swift chop and slice, she begins preparing vegetables with expert precision. The other kitchen staff watch in shock at the loud clatter of her impossibly fast work. With a proud ta-da, she presents a bowl of perfectly prepped vegetables to a stunned maid. With a sparkle, she adds that she has also peeled the garlic and onions and cleaned the mushrooms. Her eyes glint as she confirms the beef is diced and the bad ingredients have been sorted. With a pained ouch, she feigns a sore arm, asking for a short break. She plops down on a stool, thanking the concerned maid. A timer shows that her rest lasts for exactly 1 second. With a sudden spring, she jumps up, announcing she's ready to clean, leaving the maid speechless. Two maids whisper in awe, amazed by the young girl's incredible skill. She works with manic glee, feeling her experience points steadily increase. The two maids now smile proudly, finding her energetic work adorable. The other kitchen staff gather around, complimenting her talent and knowledge of ingredients. Alet happily accepts their praise while the headmaid watches with a sour expression. With an annoyed tisk, the headmaid fumes that her plan to scold Alet has completely backfired. A woman with her blonde hair tied up calls out Alet's name. With a sudden da-dun, the head chef asks Alet to taste the cream stew she's making. The other maids are shocked, as the prideful head chef never lets anyone else taste her cooking. The headmaid is horrified, realizing the gravity of the chef's unprecedented request. She tries to stop the head chef, Pisha, but is immediately silenced. Pisha coldly tells the headmaid to get out of her workspace. The headmaid flinches, biting back her rage as she's dismissed. The head chef calmly offers Alet the ladle, inviting her to have a taste. Alet takes the ladle, preparing to give her verdict. With a mental flash, she activates the power of her cash-bot skill. With a thoughtful slurp, she uses her sommelier's taste to analyze the stew. The head chef waits with her arms crossed, watching for Alet's reaction. Impressed by something only she knows, the chef asks Alet if she'd like to learn to cook. The kitchen staff murmur in absolute shock that the notoriously strict chef just offered to take a disciple. Alet realizes she cannot let this golden opportunity slip away. Playing innocent, she questions the offer before politely agreeing that she could learn. She internally celebrates, giddy at the thought of all the experience points she's about to gain. Before accepting, she turns her attention to one more thing. She knows the enraged headmaid has just unintentionally paved the way for her success. With a furious stomp, the defeated headmaid storms out of the kitchen. The head chef tells Alet to start tomorrow at 7 a.m., making a special exception for her. Beaming with delight, Alet happily accepts her new position. The next morning, sunlight streams into the quiet kitchen. Alet is already hard at work, energetically whipping and whisking a bowl of batter. Two maids watch with concern, offering to help so she doesn't tire herself out. She cheerfully brushes off their concerns, insisting she can do it herself. Secretly, she's pushing herself, determined not to lose the precious experience points before she levels up. The maids praise her hardworking nature as she happily continues her task. The clack and clang of her work echoes through the sunlit kitchen. Wiping sweat from her brow, she feels a pang in her arm and wonders how this new life is any different from her old one. She regrets pushing herself so hard, now that her arms are aching. With a quiet sob, she wishes she'd been reincarnated into a proper childcare fantasy romance. She daydreams of being a cherished member of an imperial or ducal family. With a resolute clack of her whisk, she accepts her fate as someone calls out Ali. The pink-haired boy, Prince, rushes in, asking if she's all right. As she tries to recall his name, Prince apologizes for being late due to his history lesson. He kindly takes the whisk from her, insisting that she take a break while he works. He smiles warmly, telling her it must have been hard, and she looks at him, surprised by his kindness. While she insists she's fine, he eagerly asks how he can help. She starts to give him instructions, but pauses, wondering if she can get him to do her work. Her thoughts are cut short when she notices the red, scarred marks on his hand. She recalls reading about the Rodaline family in the novel during her break. The story explained that she and Prinz are the children of Leonard Rodaline, an elite alchemist. Their father was cast out after siding with the losing faction in a power struggle. He was then tricked by Count Gillette into an unfair contract, signing away all his possessions. Because of their father's misfortune, Prinz and Aylett were forced to become the Count's servants. Returning to the present, she asks about his hand, and he explains he was whipped because Lord Rondeo failed his test. He adds cheerfully that he wasn't beaten much today because he did the Lord's homework for him. Horrified that a 12-year-old is being treated so cruelly, she tells. Prinz refuses, explaining their father doesn't know and would stop him from attending classes if he found out. Confused by her concern, he reminds her that she promised to keep quiet in exchange for his pudding. Deciding to handle it herself, she offers to get ointment and apply it for him, calling him Prinz. He gets teary-eyed at hearing his name, leaving Aylett completely bewildered by his reaction. He happily explains she hasn't called him by his name since they were 4, remembering her cold behavior. He continues that she never treated him like a brother, and Aylett realizes her original character was not a nice person. Prinz assumes her change in attitude is due to working in the kitchen, and she awkwardly agrees. She laughs it off, vowing to treat her kind new brother better from now on. The two work happily together, and she promises him she won't revert to her old self. Prinz blushes, overjoyed, clarifying he's just happy and not saying she was a bad sister before. Aylett smiles, thinking that she is, in fact, a fake sister, but it feels natural, since her own brother was the same age. A green-haired maid peeks in, announcing that it's time for snacks. Prinz suggests they quickly wash the dishes to eat, but a sudden step interrupts them. Nellie appears at the doorway with a cruel snicker, asking if Aylett is stuck doing dishes. She taunts them about their manual labor while bragging about her easy job serving the Countess. Lake coolly brushes her off, annoyed that the girl continues to be so mean. A system notification announces that she has unlocked sweet fruit desserts and basic desserts. Another notification follows, unlocking the skill steeping fragrant tea as Aylett looks on. With a triumphant clench of her fists, she celebrates her rapid skill progression. A thoughtful expression crosses her face as a new idea begins to form. Nellie steps forward, mocking them for being suited for useless tasks and demanding Aylett's attention. With a sudden spring, Aylett delivers a sharp headbutt with a loud whack. As Nellie yells in pain, Prinz rushes to help Aylett, who retorts that Nellie's head feels like a rock. Nellie rages at them, but a stern voice calls her name, stopping her in her tracks. A stern-looking woman with gray hair appears, reminding Nellie to behave properly before the Countess. A terrified Nellie addresses the woman as Madame Isella, who then asks if she's finished weighing the tea. While Nellie stammers, Aylett realizes this woman is in charge of the Countess's tea and desserts. A mischievous grin spreads across her face as a plan comes together. Tapping her way across the floor, she excitedly runs up to Madame Isella. Aylett looks up and volunteers to steep the tea for everyone's break. When Madame Isella questions her, Aylett beams, saying she wants to thank everyone who worked with her. Madame Isella reluctantly agrees, privately doubting Aylett's ability to make tea. With a series of expert motions, Aylett pours, steeps, and prepares the tea. Two maids watch in surprise, realizing Aylett is making tea for them, while Madame Isella observes sternly. Aylett beams as she presents a beautiful tray of freshly brewed tea and desserts. With a happy bustle, the maids and Prinz gather around the table, marveling at the spread she prepared. The maids are amazed, wondering if this wonderful drink is truly the same tea they always have. Madame Isella requests a taste from Pisha, who tells her to ask Aylett directly. With a cheerful raise of a cup, Aylett happily offers some to Madame Isella. Madame Isella takes a slow, thoughtful sip of the tea. She holds the cup, her face serious as she considers the flavor. With a sudden shout, she startles Aylett, who flinches in response. With a dramatic dudun, she angrily demands to know what foolishness this is. She repeats her shout, leaving Aylett wide-eyed and confused. Pisha steps forward to defend the child, but Madame Isella snaps back, asking if Pisha has gone mad. Isella aggressively compliments Aylett's talent for tea, calling it foolish to waste it in the kitchen, and Aylett realizes she's actually impressed. Nellie stares in shock, unable to understand why Madame Isella is praising Aylett. Pisha questions Isella's choice of Nellie as a disciple, prompting Isella to bluntly state that Nellie lacks talent, a crushing stab to the girl's pride. Madame Isella turns to Aylett Rodaline and eagerly offers to teach her how to serve tea. Pisha fiercely objects, declaring she will make the gifted Aylett a great chef in the kitchen. With a determined clasp, they both grab Aylett's arms, agreeing there is only one solution. With a sudden done, they simultaneously declare that she should learn from both of them. Ayelet nervously turns between them while Nellie watches, completely speechless. With a gleeful ha, Ayelet eagerly accepts the challenge to do her best. Nellie is left utterly horrified by this turn of events. A frustrated scream echoes from the Gillette estate. Back in their room, Ayelet asks Prinz if he found the ointment for his hand. Prinz sadly reports that he couldn't find any in their father's bag. Ayelet is surprised, thinking a diligent alchemist would surely have some. Prinz explains that the head maid steals the ointments for her own skin, prompting Ayelet to ask about the butler. He confirms that the butler, head maid, and doctor are all conspiring together. A determined glint appears in Ayelet's eyes. She realizes with certainty that the Rodaling family is being taken advantage of. A page explains that divine power is rarely manifested in people. When it does appear, the religious order controls it, but there is an alternative to healers. Healing potions made by alchemists are the substitute, and their father is a top alchemist from the prestigious Golden Ivory Tower. Prinz resigns himself to waiting, and with a soft clack, Ayelet watches him. She notes how sad and gloomy her brother looks, even from behind. She asks if he's in pain, but he insists he's fine. He sorrowfully admits he's just sad that he missed his chance for treatment. With a frustrated ugh, Ayelet feels compelled to help her upset brother. She rises, realizing they have all the tools and ingredients she needs, except for one thing. A system window confirms she has acquired great alchemy as a descendant of a great alchemist. With a resolute ding, she decides to make a healing ointment for her brother herself. She discovers she can't craft healing ointments yet, because her level is too low. As a concerned Prinz asks if she is okay. Undeterred, she decides to move forward, knowing another good use for soap and beauty cream. With a sudden rush, she asks Prinz for help in exchange for applying ointment, leaving him confused. Their father walks wearily down a hallway, looking exhausted. He enters their room and is shocked to find it in a complete mess, with both children asleep on the floor. With a gentle rustle, he tucks them into bed, assuming they fell asleep while playing with his alchemy tools. The desk is covered in dozens of sparkling, perfectly crafted blue potions. Her father finds the potions, wondering in disbelief if Ayelet actually crafted them. He reads her note, which explains the soaps are for servants and the beauty potion is for the countess. Impressed, he wonders why he never thought of gifting a beauty potion himself. He marvels at the perfect potions, questioning if Ayelet truly made them all alone. Thinking she might be a prodigy, he opens one with a pop but quickly dismisses the idea, assuming the quality must be poor. With a skeptical rub, he applies a single drop of the potion to the back of his hand. He stares in wide-eyed shock at the potion's immediate, powerful effect. Utterly amazed, he admits the product is incredible despite his lack of knowledge about cosmetics. He turns to his sleeping daughter with a turn, overwhelmed with emotion and pride. As Ayelet sleeps peacefully, he makes a heartfelt decision to begin teaching her alchemy. The scene shifts to a somber memory of a young, brown-haired girl at a funeral. Voices argue over her fate, suggesting she be sent to an orphanage or left to die. Her new guardians coldly inform her that she will now be living with them. Alone in her new room, the girl cries herself to sleep with a soft sob and sniffle. A pillow hits her with a sharp whack as someone yells at her for the noise. An angry girl in a pink nightgown stands in the doorway, complaining that her crying is keeping her awake. Her new family enters with a beep, giggling as they return from a shopping trip. With a cold turn, the man tells her they've already eaten dinner. She watches them return another night, laughing together and excluding her. As she timidly asks about dinner, her uncle walks past, repeating that they have already eaten. A door closes with a loud slam, leaving her completely alone in the dark. Eating by herself, she wonders why her supposedly struggling family always dines out. She confronts her uncle, accusing him of stealing all the money from her family's inheritance. Her guardians turn on her, calling her an ungrateful brat for questioning their greed. They threaten to throw her out of the house as she stares back. Resolute, kicked out, she sits alone and abandoned on a park bench. She sadly calls out for her dad. A bright, happy memory surfaces of her loving parents and brother. Lost in a dark void, she pleads with her family not to leave her alone. She whispers their names, lost and afraid in the darkness. In her despair, she begs them not to leave as her hand is gently held. Ayelet groans in her sleep, and her father's voice comforts her, assuring her it was just a nightmare. Waking up, she asks if it's really him, and he smiles, confirming that he's there. With tears in her eyes, she listens as he promises to stay until she falls asleep again. He quietly keeps his promise, watching over her from a chair by her bed. The next morning, Ayelet wakes up sweating and completely flustered. She finds her father and Prinz sleeping on either side of her, holding her hands tightly. Realizing she cried and begged them not to go, she smacks herself, utterly embarrassed. Too mortified to sleep, she decides she might as well read the novel. With a flip of the pages, she searches for another mention of the Rodaling family. On behalf of Lord Ramdeo, I sincerely apologize. The story continues as the person offers to guide a guest to their room in a grand estate. In the novel, a pink-haired boy leads a white-haired man to one of the better rooms. The white-haired man expresses concern, noting the room's feminine decor. The pink-haired boy reassures the guest, telling him not to worry. He explains that the items belong to his late sister, a revelation that shocks Ayelet. The book falls from her hands with a sudden drop. She covers her mouth in horror, realizing that in the original story, she is destined to die. Frantically, she fumbles for the book, hoping she misunderstood the cruel twist of fate. My younger sister, Ailette Rodaline, is dead, confirming her death in the novel. Ailette reads that her brother couldn't bring himself to put away his late sister's belongings. With a defeated raise of her head, she sits on the floor and accepts her bleak future. She realizes the castle is in the worst possible place, built right on top of a dungeon. Her hand forms a tight clench as she accepts that this new life will be a struggle. She holds the book, confident that knowing the story will give her the key to survive. Vowing to read every word, she declares her determination to live. The scene lingers on the quiet estate under the night sky. With a frustrated squeeze, she realizes she read the entire book, but the ending still makes no sense. Facing the window, she calls her tragic life and the protagonist suffering character abuse and yells at the author. A sparkling system window appears, offering her a combat skill package for survival. Determined, she decides to use the package she bought to choose a combat ability. Healers are rare in this universe, as an angelic figure is shown. Looking up with newfound resolve, Ailette declares that she wants to become a healer. With a sudden whoosh, a powerful energy surrounds her as she makes her choice. Staring at a new system window, she asks, in confusion, a quest? The scene shifts to a large, stately building with a prominent clock tower. With a sweep and a swish, a broom cleans up fallen leaves. Ailette diligently sweeps the floor of a dusty, abandoned chapel. With a thoughtful glance, she considers her new task. 1,000 days of morning prayer with strict rules. She looks around the abandoned chapel, resigning herself to the difficult task of wielding divine power. Clasping her hands, she nervously wonders how she's supposed to even begin. Recalling she was never religious, she questions how to pray sincerely to a fictional god. With a sad droop, she slumps onto a pew, admitting she doesn't believe in gods. She sits up with a sudden raise, having an idea. She recalls her afterlife experience and the god she was told about, remembering an angelic corgi. Her hands come together with a determined spring. With a startling dun, she shouts a prayer to the gods of the Transmigration Bureau for divine power. A joyful beam of light shines down as she excitedly celebrates her apparent success. She leans on the pew, preparing to pour her sincerity into her prayers for the gods to hear. She decides to complain sincerely, starting with her abrupt transmigration and shortening the gods' names. She asks the TM gods why she, an ordinary person, was brought to this place. Her eyes widen as she has a sudden, dark realization about her old life. She vents her rage, recounting how her greedy relatives stole her family's inheritance. As her prayer progress hits 60, she admits she doesn't miss her old life, only her unread books. She thinks of her new family sleeping peacefully and feels glad to have them now. Continuing her prayer, she notes how her new father and brother resemble her old family. With an embarrassed ugh, she scolds herself for getting emotional when no one is listening. With a sudden bam, she collapses in despair, realizing her uncle will steal her rent deposit. A divine voice reassures her that her rent deposit was used to pay for her transmigration. With a surprising ding, she receives notifications that 2 gods are too busy to help her. Confused, she wonders if the gods are actually responding to her prayer. In a flash, a god informs her that her cousin now parties all day and will likely fail in life. Ailette is surprised to learn her cousin has already failed to get into college 4 times. She thanks the god, admitting that hearing about her relative's downfall is calming. The god explains it feels responsible for causing her premature death. She connects this to a news report about a crisis of mass deaths, wondering if the gods were responsible. A system message reveals a bug caused living souls to be transmigrated by mistake. She is left completely speechless, realizing her death was caused by a system error. With a soft plop, she sits on the pew, deciding not to ask to return, but having another request in mind. Ailette asks the god to make her strong, but the divine voice explains that skip systems require astronomical amounts of cash and begins observing her carefully. Playing up her enthusiasm, she calls Lord Voice the best, and he nonchalantly agrees since he's the creator of the universe. He seems taken aback by her sudden enthusiasm, but she just gives him a cheerful thumbs up. The divine voice smiles, calling her his very first follower, which leaves her completely baffled. A brilliant flash of golden light descends from the heavens, engulfing her completely. Bathed in the holy light, she gives a dazed and slightly goofy thumbs up. Panicking that things are moving too fast, she receives 2 new skills: love of the voice that shapes the world, and favor of the voice that shapes the world. A notification explains the favor unlocks advanced divine skills, causing her to gasp in awe at her incredible 1,000-day matured deposit. The confused raise of her hands, she admits that while something huge just happened, she has no idea what it is. Deciding to go all in, she tearfully declares her absolute trust in Lord Voice and vows to be his faithful believer. The scene transitions to a grand, sunlit room with ornate golden fixtures. With a gentle rub, a woman with dark hair and a red rose in it, Countess Sandra Gillette, admires how great her skin feels. She credits the blue potion the alchemist gave her, noting how effective it is. She recalls once thinking he was a sham when his potions failed to help her son, but now believes he truly worked at the Golden Ivory Tower. Annoyed, she wonders why the ingrate never offered a beauty potion before, until her daughter's voice calls out, "Mother." Her dark-haired daughter, Bianca Gillette, points out that her mother was too preoccupied with her face to hear anything she said. The Countess laughs it off, feigning innocence and trying to get their conversation back on track. Bianca reminds her they were discussing the fate of House Gillette, which seems to startle her mother. In a clear and steady voice, Bianca proposes that she, not her untalented brother, should become the family head and marry a capable knight to save their family from downfall. When asked for her opinion, the Countess is internally flustered, admitting her 10-year-old daughter is shrewd and intimidating. The Countess weakly suggests they wait, as her son is still young, just as a maid arrives to announce that tea is served. With a clink and clack of dishes, the Countess brings up how Bianca has sent away yet another playmate. With a sharp clack, Bianca coldly replies that none of the playmates have met her standards. The Countess's attention is then captured by a peculiar-looking dessert on the tea table. A smiling, gray-haired maid explains that the apple soup was made by Mr. Rodelane's daughter, Ailette. The maid praises Ailette's dessert-making talent, recalling a moment when the girl cheered that her god was with her in the kitchen. Taking a bite, the Countess is shocked by the exquisite flavor, declaring that it suits her taste perfectly. Pleased with both the alchemist's potions and his daughter's dessert, she orders that Ailette be rewarded with plenty of snacks. Bianca's ears perk up at the mention of beauty potions. Her mother happily explains her surprise that potions, which she thought were only for healing, could also be used for cosmetics. Bianca becomes suspicious, knowing Leonard Rodelane is a rigid alchemist who only studies standard potions. The maid adds that Mr. Rodelane also gifted soaps to the servants, proudly stating his daughter had made them, which deepens Bianca's curiosity. The head maid, Isela, watches the scene unfold with a thoughtful expression. Realizing something is amiss, Bianca sits up straight and urgently asks where Ailette is now. The scene shifts to a bright, sunny vegetable garden on the estate grounds. Ailette smiles sweetly as she admires the pretty, ripe tomatoes she's just picked. Sitting amongst the plants, she sadly reflects on having to work so hard, even in the afterlife. But as the freshly picked tomatoes shine in the sun, she admits it feels good to see the fruits of her labor. A sudden dadan startles her as a black-haired boy with red eyes glares down at her, demanding to know what she's looking at. She immediately identifies the boy by his expensive clothing and mean-looking face. Recognizing him as the Count's spoiled son, Lord Romdeo, she watches with a smirk as he ignores her protests and grabs a tomato from her basket. With a sharp whoosh, he winds up his arm, preparing to throw the tomato. The tomato hits two servants with a messy whack and splat, causing them to cry out in shock. Lord Romdeo laughs maniacally while Ailette stares in disgust, thinking he's a despicable little brat. Annoyed that he's out of ammo, he angrily demands that Prince's sister fetch him more tomatoes. Resigned to her role as a powerless maid, Ailette reluctantly offers him another tomato from her basket. With a series of gleeful whacks and splats, he pelts the other servants, shouting about how much fun he's having. He turns to offer Ailette a turn, but is cut short by a sudden wet squish in his hand. He stares down at his hand, confused by the gooey, crushed remains of the tomato. A horrifying close-up reveals the tomato is infested with squirming worms, one of which seems to say, "Hi." With a disgusted toss, Lord Romdeo flings the wormy tomato away, screaming in horror. Ailette feigns innocence with an oops, apologizing for grabbing a bad tomato while secretly thinking he deserved it for playing with his food. Deciding to console the whimpering boy, she offers to wipe the gooey mess off his hand. After cleaning his hand, she cheerfully asks if he's ready to go back to throwing tomatoes. With a sharp snatch, he pulls his hand away, yelling that he doesn't want to anymore. As he makes a quick dash to escape, he threatens her not to tell anyone about this. With the brat gone, Ailette turns to head back and finish her kitchen chores. Her path is suddenly blocked by an angry, panting brown-haired girl. The girl glares, accusing Ailette of getting touchy-feely with Lord Romdeo. With a step, Ailette asks if Nellie ran all this way to fight, but the girl just screams, "Shut up!" Nellie aggressively questions Ailette, demanding to know what she said to Lord Romdeo and why he ignored her. Annoyed by Nellie's attitude, Ailette thinks about the girl's crush on the spoiled brat and flatly refuses to answer. With a frustrated grind of her teeth, Nellie glares in fury at Ailette's defiance. With a sudden yank, Nellie grabs Ailette's collar, warning her to know her place. A system message reveals the voice can only glare at Nellie. Ailette recalls that Nellie had volunteered to serve tea, suspecting her motives. Nellie sneers, accusing Ailette of being after Lord Romdeo as well, and calling her ugly. With a ding, a new notification appears. The voice now watches with anticipation, as Ailette realizes Nellie's true goal isn't Lord Romdeo. Ailette puts on a sly grin, feigning coincidence. Nellie shakes her furiously, demanding she pay attention. Ailette calmly summarizes Nellie's plan, to seduce Lord Romdeo and become a noble. With a triumphant snicker, Nellie confirms it, calling Ailette a dummy for being so slow. From behind a pillar, Bianca watches as Ailette points out the difficulty for a commoner to marry a noble. With a HMPH, Nellie dismisses the concern, claiming she can follow in the footsteps of the Countess, who is also a commoner. An unseen woman's hand signals them to halt. Ailette's eyes widen innocently as she asks who told Nellie that the Countess was a commoner. Nellie shouts with pride that her mother told her. The Countess Gillette appears from the shadows with Bianca, menacingly asking if that's what Nellie really thinks of her. Nellie turns in absolute terror, stunned to see the Countess standing right there. The Countess calmly questions if Nellie thinks it's easy to become a Countess, dismissing her words as childish rambling. Her expression turns into a furious glare as she declares that Nellie's mother, however, has no such excuse for gossip. The Countess shouts, ordering guards to throw Nellie and her mother out of the castle immediately. As two butlers drag a screaming Nellie away, she cries out for the Countess's mercy. The Countess huffs about the worthless fools, but Bianca reassures her that it was good to get rid of the corrupt headmaid anyway. Bianca smiles, noting what an opportune moment this turned out to be. Wanting to escape before she's blamed, Aylett gives a quick bow and tries to leave for the kitchen. With a quick tap-tap, Bianca runs to stop her, asking her mother if she can have Aylett. With a bright, determined smile, Bianca announces that she wants Aylett to be her new playmate. Aylett stands in stunned silence, completely caught off guard by the request. A narration reveals the rumor among servants that being Lady Bianca's playmate was an impossible task. Many relatives had been invited to play, but every single one fled in tears within 3 days. They would scream in terror if Bianca even tried to see them off, leading to rumors that she bullied them. In her room, Bianca wonders when Aylett will arrive, revealing she never hated them and actually longed for a friend. Looking out the window, she hopes Aylett won't run away, admitting she needs someone to play dolls with. She reflects on her simple standards for a friend, someone smart, with a good personality and similar interests. A beautiful image of Aylett appears, framed by cherry blossoms. The other servants are shocked, realizing Aylett managed to get the headmaid fired while looking completely innocent. Bianca decides Aylett's personality is acceptable and prepares to test her further as a knock sounds at her door. As the door creaks open, Aylett stands there nervously, greeting Lady Bianca. Bianca smiles warmly, welcoming Miss Aylett into her room. With a thud, Bianca places a stack of books down in the library, telling Aylett they will read together and she can pick any book she wants. Aylett looks up from the books, wondering if reading is what playmates do together. She inspects Bianca's bookshelf, filled with advanced topics on leadership and finance, thinking it's strange for a 10-year-old. As Bianca's book on investment policy sparkles and gleams, Aylett watches her, thinking she seems genuinely engrossed and not just trying to torment her. With a bright ta-da, Aylett excitedly pulls out a book she finds interesting, titled, How I Seduced the Demon Lord as a Warrior. With a happy step, Aylett walks over as Bianca invites her to lie down and read, to which she enthusiastically agrees. The two girls relax on separate couches in the grand library, each absorbed in their own book. Aylett lies on the couch, thoughtfully reading her chosen fantasy novel. With a rise, Aylett sits up and asks Lady Bianca if she can choose a different book, and Bianca casually agrees. Bianca looks up from her reading, a little surprised by the request. Standing by the bookshelf, Aylett holds up the Bible, prompting Bianca to ask why she picked it. Aylett explains that she needs to understand the scriptures to properly appreciate literature, a reason which seems to impress Bianca. Aylett thinks to herself that culture provides context for art, recalling how religion influenced countless works in her past life. Therefore, she reasons to truly understand how I seduced the Demon Lord as a warrior, she needs to learn this world's religion. Lying sadly on the couch, Aylett admits she had no idea what the characters were talking about during the book's climax. Bianca is floored, realizing Aylett pinpointed exactly what she needed to do to further her own understanding. Bianca marvels at Aylett's intelligence, impressed that she uses the Bible as a source of knowledge rather than just faith. Blushing, Bianca admits her heart fluttered, wondering if perhaps Aylett is the friend she's been looking for. 4 days later, a surprised Aylett sports a new hairstyle with her hair in 2 braided pigtails. Bianca suggests they try something new after reading for 4 straight days and asks what Aylett thinks. Aylett beams with excitement, accepting the offer and fondly recalling playing with her brother when they were young. She explains how they compromised their tastes, which always resulted in them playing out a galactic romance involving dolls and robots. Aylett excitedly runs off to get the dolls, while Bianca obediently agrees. A variety of elegant dolls are shown, including a noble lady, a prince, and a small child. Aylett gushes over how cute the dolls are, and Bianca announces that she will assign the roles. The little girl doll is designated as the maid, sitting beside a teddy bear in a suit. The prince and noble lady dolls are labeled the cheating duke and the crafty lover. Holding the dolls, Aylett looks confused, thinking there's something odd about the setting. A shocking da-dun sounds as Bianca begins a violent play, accusing the sly fox maid of seducing her husband and ordering her to a torture chamber. A narration reveals this is Bianca's final test, sharing similar interests. A test no one has ever passed. Her peculiar tastes always drove her playmates away, as shown by a horrified girl seeing a murdered and dismembered doll. Bianca's feelings were always hurt, and she was afraid Aylett would run away in fear, just like all the others. However, Aylett simply raises the noble lady doll to continue the scene. With a dramatic da-dun, Aylett makes the doll passionately defend herself, claiming she was framed and wronged by the Duke. Aylett shakes the doll, having it swear nothing happened between them, leaving Bianca speechless. Aylett reveals the shocking twist. Nothing happened because the Duke doesn't have it, stunning Bianca into silence. Smiling proudly with her dolls, Aylett declares the lover is the true victim of the Duke's false promises, drawing on her past life's knowledge of online novels. The Duke doll protests his innocence, claiming the affair is preposterous and that he doesn't even know the woman. The maid doll begs for mercy and offers to prove her resolve by torturing the Duke herself, proceeding to drag him away. The doll lets out a blood-curdling scream as the teddy bear watches. Bianca stands frozen, completely stunned by the dramatic and dark turn the doll play has taken. With a final flop, the Duke doll falls face first onto the floor, defeated. Ayelet cheerfully announces the Duke fainted and asks a silent Bianca if she had fun. Bianca drops her own doll with a thud, and suddenly reaches out to grab Ayelet's hands. As roses and sparkles fill the air, Bianca holds Ayelet's hands and asks, "Can I call you Allie?" With sparkling eyes and a blush, Bianca thinks to herself that Ayelet is the one. Completely bewildered, Ayelet can only ask, what? Proud of her acting skills, Ayelet wonders if Bianca liked her scream, while Bianca suggests they use nicknames, offering to be called Bia. Ayelet nervously agrees to the new arrangement. Bianca gives a warm and genuine smile. Her search for a friend finally over. Now sitting close together, Bianca excitedly asks Allie to tell her more about the torture devices, and Ayelet happily obliges. As cherry blossoms float by a grand mansion, the girls agree to use nicknames, settling on Bia and Allie. Ayelet recalls reading medieval torture devices from the Ultimate Library, noting with amusement that Bianca loved it. While walking upstairs, Ayelet reflects that although Bianca is peculiar, she's also fun to be with. As the voice listens, Ayelet asks if the Ultimate Library can also save books she reads in this new life, not just from her past. After the voice beams with joy, Ayelet raises a fist in triumph, thanking it for granting her request. Ayelet happily reports her progress. Her cooking skill is now level 4, and her alchemy is level 3. With Madame Isella standing proudly behind her, Ayelet tells the voice about the plan to send her to a duke, joking it's a perfect romance plot. Ayelet laughs, mocking the family's tomato-hurling air, before teasing what Bianca said about him. In a flashback, Bianca explains to Ayelet that House Gillette's reputation is failing, and that she must become the family head to save it. With a loud laugh, Ayelet thinks how mature Bianca is for her age, feeling confident in her ability to lead the family. Her expression turns serious as a troubling thought crosses her mind. Staring down a long library aisle, she wonders how a family with such a smart girl could have possibly fallen into ruin in the novel. She read as a dark aura emanates from a book on the shelf. With a sudden flume, dark energy erupts from a book titled Dungeons, Chasms of the Demon Realm. On a new day, Bianca gives a pleasant smile, surrounded by flowers. Ayelet asks Bianca what their plans are for the day, and Bianca suggests they check out new books in the library. Bianca proudly admits she waited for Ayelet to see the books, causing Ayelet to cheer that she's the best. Ayelet enthusiastically asks Bianca to lead the way, and the two girls happily head for the library. The scene shifts to the magnificent, sprawling interior of the castle library. With a soft creak, Bianca and Ayelet enter a quiet section of the library. Ayelet gasps in awe, and Bianca offers to show her around while the librarian is on break. Bianca smiles, explaining she's very familiar with the library since she visits so often. As she walks, the towering bookshelves seem to loom ominously over her. Bianca stops, puzzled, saying something feels different as Ayelet asks what's wrong. They walk with a quiet step, down a long, darkening library corridor. With another step, Ayelet follows closely behind Bianca, looking around the strange hallway. They continue their walk down the aisle with a steady step. Bianca stops and pulls a book from the shelf, identifying it as Dungeons, Chasms of the Demon Realm. A hand slides the sinister-looking book from its place on the shelf. Ayelet nervously asks Bianca if the library is always so dark. Sensing something is wrong, she calls out to an unresponsive Bianca as a strange sound fills the air. With a great whoosh and swoosh, dark energy erupts from the empty space on the bookshelf, startling Ayelet while Bianca smiles calmly. A sudden, blinding flash of red and black energy explodes outwards as Bianca pulls Ayelet into a tight embrace. With a powerful whoosh, Bianca firmly grabs Ayelet's hand as dark tendrils swirl around them. The library corridor is suddenly empty, with only the open book left abandoned on the floor. With a slight wobble, a dizzy Bianca holds her head, wondering what just happened. Her red eyes widen in shock as she takes in her new surroundings. With the dramatic dead done, the two girls find themselves standing in a misty graveyard under a blood-red moon. Bianca begins to falter, stammering in confusion about how they ended up here from the library. Ayelet looks grimly at a horrified Bianca, telling her she might know what happened. A system notification appears, informing them they have entered an A-class dungeon, Gillette Castle's underground cemetery. Ayelet recalls a scene from the novel where a pink-haired man explained his sister died after falling into a sealed dungeon in the castle. Clutching her head in agony, Ayelet realizes with horror that today is the day her character is fated to die. Ayelet understands now. She and Bianca were meant to die together, which is why Bianca was never mentioned in the novel. Bianca whispers to Ayelet that it's impossible to escape a dungeon without killing the master. Ayelet tries to reassure Bianca with faith in God, but Bianca admits she's an atheist, forcing Ayelet to insist she have faith in her God. Ayelet proclaims that her God has come to their rescue and desperately calls out to Lord Voice. Looking betrayed, Ayelet complains to the voice that an A-class dungeon is a bug, as the tutorial's difficulty was supposed to be easy. Ayelet angrily argues that a tutorial zone should prevent deaths, so this must be a mistake. With a great sob, Eilette accuses the voice of planning her death all along, just as she was killed in her past life. Eilette sits up, demanding compensation for the system's bug. She demands they either make the dungeon easy or make her powerful, imagining herself as a muscle-bound warrior. A sudden rumble and quake shake the ground as skeletal remains begin to rise from their graves. With a terrifying growl, zombies and skeletons surround the two girls, who huddle together in fear. Panicked, Eilette desperately pleads for Lord Voice to hurry. A system notification dings, announcing that the voice has granted her a new skill as she looks up in surprise. With a hopeful turn, Eilette decides to check the skill window. She realizes with delight that the new skill is far beyond her expectations. A skeleton lets out a roar as it lunges forward, causing Bianca to flinch in terror. Eilette steps in front of her, smiling reassuringly and promising to protect her as a stunned Bianca whispers her nickname. Through a cute sob, Bianca agrees to keep Allie safe too, but Eilette insists that she was being serious about protecting her. As skeletons writhe in a bloody mist, an evil voice laughs with a sinister schwoom. A terrifying hooded figure with red eyes and horns introduces himself as Arpaman, the master of the dungeon. The dungeon master notes their youth, cynically asking if they were sent as sacrifices. Bianca boldly introduces herself as the successor of House Gillette and offers a negotiation, 100 human children in exchange for their freedom, shocking Eilette. Arpaman considers the deal, then accepts on the condition that Bianca leaves the servant girl behind. With a sharp step forward, Bianca shields Eilette and counters with an offer of 200 children for both of them, but Arpaman scoffs at her foolishness, stating he doesn't trust humans. Arpaman accuses her of planning to betray him, assuming she'll either forget the deal or sacrifice dead bodies instead. With a snicker, chuckle, and sneer, the demon taunts Bianca, telling her to abandon her friend and save her own life. Arpaman tells them to entertain him by fighting for survival, but Eilette takes a defiant stride forward, refusing to listen to his nonsense. Bianca gives Eilette's hand a nervous squeeze, calling out her name in concern. Bianca begs Eilette not to go, declaring that she will be the one to stay behind to fulfill her duty as the head of House Gillette. She looks at Eilette with conviction, telling her that she's not a servant, she's her friend. As Bianca turns, Eilette tells her friend she doesn't have to make that sacrifice. Eilette smiles brightly, reminding Bianca of her promise that everything would be fine. With renewed determination, Eilette turns and steps in front of Bianca to face the danger. She raises her hand with a vow to protect Bianca. Filled with a new power, Eilette shouts the name of her skill, Divine Advent. Bianca watches in awe as the dungeon master reels back in shock, proclaiming her power to be impossible. Eilette feels the incredible power coursing through her as she begins to transform. With her hair turning white, a system notification announces she has completed the tutorial, but has been removed from the rankings due to an anomaly. Now, with long white hair and golden eyes, Eilette radiates divine energy. As the system explains her new skill, the dungeon master flinches, recognizing a power he thought was long gone. Eilette begins to float into the air, calmly telling the demon that he must not have heard the news. Reaching out a hand, she confidently declares her next skill, Omniscience. With a dark schwoom, the dungeon master gathers a ball of red energy, vowing not to let her succeed. A powerful whoosh of dark magic erupts as Arpaman prepares to strike her down. Eilette decides to use her most powerful skill, Omnipotence, but a warning beeps in response. A locked notification denies her access to the top 10 skills due to a low assimilation level, much to her dismay. With a massive whoosh, the dungeon master unleashes his ultimate attack, screaming for the brat to die. The terrified Bianca screams Eilette's name. Lei quickly glances down her skill list, spotting a 15th ranked ability. With a brilliant flash, a golden barrier appears just in time to block the attack. Eilette shouts the skill's name, Siege Barrier, as a notification confirms its activation, stunning the dungeon master with its impossible power. Looking down her list of skills again, she selects her next move, Divine Retribution. Divine lightning begins to crackle around her hand. With a deafening croom and boom, a great foom of lightning erupts from her hand, annihilating the skeletal minions. The dungeon master lets out a final agonizing scream as the divine power completely engulfs him. Eilette floats serenely above the cracked earth where the demon now lies defeated. The scorched and broken dungeon master begins to sweat, begging for mercy as Eilette coolly contemplates his request. As the demon screams a final ga, Eilette remembers that divine healing is fatal to the wicked and scoffs at his plea for mercy. A system notice confirms Eilette has defeated Arpaman and now owns the dungeon. With a swoosh and swish, the dark graveyard fades away into light. With a sudden whoosh, Eilette gasps as the world around her changes. She spots a bag and a book, recognizing them as boss rewards. With a ding, notifications identify her rewards, a bag and a passive skill. Now back to her pink hair, Eilette decides to check her new loot later. Bianca excitedly grabs Eilette's hands, calling her an amazing apostle of God. Bianca presses her about being an apostle, so Eilette nervously confirms she's the first follower of the Voice. Bianca gratefully concludes that Eilette was sent to bring salvation to their world. A system ding informs a shocked Eilette that the Voice's holiness and her favor have increased. Horrified, she realizes she just evangelized someone, comparing it to a pyramid scheme. Eilette begins to wobble, her strength failing her. With a flop, she collapses as Bianca cries out her name in alarm. She realizes the power came with a price, a holy fever. As Bianca desperately begs her to wake up, Aylette apologizes and passes out. With a great sob, Bianca cries that she won't let her new friend die. Bleeding from her mouth, Aylette weakly calls out to Bianca one last time. With a final flop, she assures herself she's not dying as her consciousness fades. With a dash and sprint, robed figures hurry down a grand hall. As a candelabra murmurs with light, two priests announce the arrival of the Chosen One. The church is filled with a divine glow as a voice proclaims that God has descended. The priests rejoice, believing this miracle proves their faith was only being tested. A priest announces the advent occurred in the Winchester Kingdom. Surprising another, he orders a search party to save the new saint from the land of unbelievers. A white-haired young man in a hood listens silently as others praise the new hope for salvation. He takes a silent step away as another comments on how quickly the clergy's favor has shifted. One acolyte decides to leave for a secular life, but his friend doubts the order will let them go. He explains they will always be used as political tools, even in times of peace. His companions tease him, suggesting he must be jealous of the new saint. With a calm smile, he warns them that such jokes are sinful and could cause trouble. Gosh, one calls him a patronizing jerk, while the other notes, it's why the order favors him. As they walk away bickering, the white-haired man watches them go. Alone, he thinks his warning was literal, pressing a glowing cross mark on his wrist. He senses something different about this new power, but dismisses the idea of an unbelieving saint. He wonders about the identity of this mysterious new saint. Are you, he thinks, the question lingering among the flowers. Back in her room, Aylette lies in bed, sick with a high fever. She feels completely drained and terrible from the fever. With a flop, she collapses back into bed, feeling utterly exhausted. She smiles, grateful to Lord Voice for saving her life. Agreeing with the voice, she resolves to find ways to become stronger on her own. Looking out the window, she vows to train so she can survive without the protagonist. The voice agrees with her plan, but Riley points out her faith system is a pyramid scheme. Bianca bursts through the door, relieved to find Allie awake. Aylette calls out to her as Bianca dashes to her bedside, asking how she feels. Aylette slips up about a penalty, but quickly covers by saying she just slept well. Bianca reveals she was worried, as Aylette had been asleep for 2 whole days. The recent events lead Aylette to an important realization. She realizes that the people in this world try their very best for their friends. They keep the faith and seek peace for the souls of those they care about. In a memory, a woman tells a young Aylette to get desserts, while another suggests she rest from her work. In another memory, Aylette's family lovingly feeds her desserts in bed after she eats something bitter. Gazing at the night sky, she reflects that these people must have souls too. Lying in bed, she wonders what to do if the god of this world has truly abandoned them. As her thought trails off, the scene focuses on Bianca's determined expression. Bianca explains she waited for Aylette to wake before making any big decisions, and Aylette agrees to keep her powers a secret. Bianca asks if Aylette plans to become a dungeon raider when she grows up. Aylette grimaces at the thought of the trouble, but reluctantly agrees it's the best way to get stronger. Bianca passionately offers to provide administrative and material support for her dungeon clearing, hoping they can stay together, which touches Aylette. Overcome with emotion, Aylette gives Bianca a thankful rub and nuzzle, as Bianca calls her a precious friend and savior. With a scribble and scritch of her quill, Bianca decides to have the librarian purchase more books on dungeons. Aylette asks what to do about the library dungeon, then begins explaining the 2 options after defeating a boss. She explains that one option is to farm the weakened dungeon for materials, and the other is to completely destroy it if it's too dangerous. Aylette decides they must close their dungeon, pouting that it has nothing valuable besides an empty cemetery and skeletons. Bianca is shocked that skeletons helped her, but Aylette clarifies she threatened to turn them to dust, prompting Bianca to note it was coercion. With a turn, Bianca watches as Aylette begins to rummage and fumble in her bag. Aylette reveals the boss reward, a book that grants the passive skill, Infamy in the Realm of the Undead. She smiles, realizing the power of infamy and fear is exactly what she needs. With a sudden spring, Aylette eagerly tells a confused Bianca it's time to go. Aylette runs off with a joyful smile, ready to put her new plan into action. Elsewhere, 2 knights congratulate a blonde prince on completing his journey and returning to the castle. The prince thanks them, and a knight asks what he plans to do first upon his return. The prince surprises his knights by announcing he wants to try farming, but they protest that it's hard labor. The prince and his knights all beam with cheerful smiles. The knights playfully toss the laughing prince into the air, cheering for him. Their celebration is cut short by a violent quake, as the ground begins to crack and rumble, and a massive horned demon emerges from a fiery chasm. The demon introduces himself as Ardaman, vowing to lead the terrified prince and his men to hell. In the present, a group of skeletons dances carefree in the empty dungeon land. With a determined din, Aylette and Bianca stand on a small mound, ready to take charge. 2 skeletons tremble and rattle in fear, intimidated by the girl's presence. Bianca asks how they'll make money, but Aylette looks confident. Aylette points to the rattling skeletons, explaining her passive fear skill has turned them into obedient laborers for the vast land. A system window offers a non-combat skill package, and Eilette resolves to make a choice. She decides they will start a farm to grow herbs for potions, increasing her profits and circumventing her father's exploitation. Late sweetly wishes someone good luck. With a determined jolt, she brandishes a shovel and rallies the skeletons to work their bones off. She lays out the plan: cultivate the barren land, find a water vein, and dig a well without stopping. Two exhausted skeletons dig with a clunk, one lamenting that he thought they'd finally get to rest. He concludes they've just traded one tyrant for another as a menacing Eilette looms, demanding they work. The lead skeleton corrects him, recounting how their former master Artemon was far crueler. He recalls how they were forced to kill countless adventurers and must now atone for their sins. The skeletons rattle and cry, despairing over who will save them from their cursed existence. They lie on the ground, slacking off while explaining they only wish for proper graves and tombstones. Eilette shouts from afar, catching them idling and ordering them to hustle back to work. As the sun sets, a tired Eilette wipes her brow, satisfied with the day's hard work. Standing by a newly built well, she praises the skeletons and instructs them to dig 7 graves before resting. She gets the skeletons' attention and lines them up. Eilette proposes that since there are 7 skeletons who sleep in graves, they should have 7 individual ones. The skeletons are overcome with joy and disbelief, exclaiming, "They're for us." A skeleton recalls being crammed 5 to a single grave, realizing with astonishment that they will finally each have their own. A trio of skeletons pose cutely amidst flowers and sparkles. Eilette promises to give them proper tombstones with names and flowers, acknowledging their past lives. 2 skeletons are deeply moved, whispering the word tombstones. The lead skeleton asks in disbelief if they'll really get names and flowers on them. He reflects that this is the first real consideration they've received since becoming undead. The skeletons gaze at Eilette with reverence, calling her Your Highness. Their awe grows as they conclude that she is a true saint. A holy light envelops a confused Eilette, who has no idea what's happening. With a sudden lift, the grateful skeletons hoist Eilette into the air. With a great whoosh, they joyfully toss the shocked girl towards the sun. As the skeletons celebrate, a panicked Eilette asks what they're doing. Bianca proudly notes she's bonded with her new workers, but Eilette just begs for help. An ominous snap is heard as Eilette cries out that something just got dislocated. The scene transitions as 3 weeks pass. Eilette explains that since time moves 3 times faster in the dungeon, it's actually been 9 weeks. She looks at the results of their labor and exclaims, "Wow!" As plants sway and water trickles, the barren land has transformed into a lush paradise. Standing amidst the greenery, Eilette marvels at how beautiful it all is. With a rattle, the skeletons diligently work their new farm. As they zoom around with a rattle, clatter, and clank, Eilette praises her skeletal crew for their beautiful work. With a grand ta-da, a skeleton proudly presents the first harvest of herbs. Eilette is amazed by how quickly the herbs grew, asking if they've been harvested already. The skeletons eagerly surround her, offering her all the herbs they've gathered. With a heavy dun, Eilette struggles under the weight of several full baskets. As Eilette stumbles with an oof, Bianca suggests the fear skill discipline the skeletons, but then concludes they simply love their farm. With a confident flip of her bag, Eilette declares she has a way to carry everything. With a magical felfwish, she demonstrates her new bag by making an entire basket disappear inside. Bianca claps in amazement while Eilette explains it was another reward from defeating Artemon. An item description reveals the tomb robber's bag, which contains a weightless subspace. Eilette announces her plan to make potions, and Bianca immediately offers to start a company to distribute them for her. Bianca presents her business plan to bypass corrupt merchants, suggesting a local test run to improve their profits. Impressed by Bianca's amazing plan, Eilette realizes she can now focus entirely on making potions. She reflects that her dream of a peaceful childcare story may have failed, but becoming a rich transmigrator is still possible, and she joyfully promises Lord Voice a huge cash offering. A sudden ding from a system notification startles her. A system window flashes, announcing an update check for the transmigrator support system, which Eilette remembers hearing about. As screens flicker to life, she whispers for the update log, and is pleased to see her requested Ultimate Library upgrade is complete. As she continues to scroll through the item shop updates, her eyes widen. With a dramatic dun, she discovers a genre change voucher, and her heart pounds Batum at the possibility of changing her dangerous life with cash. She is thrilled at the chance to live in a romance novel until she sees the outrageous price and random genre selection. Looking at other items, she finds a limited-time companion growth package for rookies with hidden potential. She glances at Bianca, but sees no icon, guessing the package is only for combat or labor skills. Just as she dismisses Bianca as a brainy character, a skeleton suddenly appears before her. Startled, she's surprised when the skeleton offers her a cup of flower tea. As she accepts the tea, she has a sudden, shocked realization. With a flourish, a new potential is revealed. The system identifies the skeleton as Skeleton Surf 1004. A window displays his hidden farming skill and potential, and Eilette spots the hovering icon indicating he's a valid target. She realizes with a shock that the growth package works on the undead, and that he must have been a talented farmer in life. The red-cloaked skeleton poses dramatically, radiating a newfound power. With a grin, Eilette gives him a thumbs up, knowing exactly what to do, while the skeleton eagerly nods, ready for his new purpose. With a mighty zoom, a tiny, determined Eyelet appears on the superpowered skeleton's outstretched hand. The skeleton works with incredible speed, plucking weeds and stacking boxes in a blur. While sipping tea, Eyelet agrees with Bianca that the skeleton is suddenly working very efficiently. She mentally reviews her plan. The fear effect ensures the skeleton's obedience, and Skeleton Surf 1004 will manage the farm, making him worth the price she paid. Eyelet smiles, thinking that, above all else, the skeleton lovingly tends to the plants, gently digging and patting the soil. Looking out a window, Eyelet thoughtfully agrees that it makes sense. She muses that it would be difficult to find supporting characters with hidden potential. With a sudden dun, her eyes lock onto a shining pink diamond icon floating above someone outside. She sees a pink-haired boy on the ground and realizes with a shock that it's Prince, and he has an icon. As she presses her face to the window, she sees a system window flicker over his head. She gasps, realizing his hidden skill is amazing. With a clack, she throws the doors open and bursts into the room, calling out to Prince. A dramatic crash sounds as she's immediately sent flying by a dark-haired boy kicking a wooden pole. The pink-haired boy, Prince, wipes his face and is told to get up by a dark-haired boy. With a maniacal grin, the dark-haired boy prepares to strike again, shouting that it's not over yet. Eyelet watches in horror, wondering what is happening. A loud whack echoes through the room. She stares, still trying to process what's going on. With a wham and a thwack, Prince is brutally beaten by the smirking, red-eyed boy. With a desperate dash, Eyelet rushes forward and blocks the next blow, shielding Prince. She glares, recognizing her attacker as the Rotten Tomato Kid. The boy, annoyed, tells her to get out of the way while he's training his sparring skills. A man with a mustache agrees, coolly stating that outsiders aren't welcome. Eyelet angrily questions the boy, Lord Romdeo, asking how servants are supposed to strike back. A bruised Prince looks up from the floor, his expression filled with despair. Romeo mockingly tells her not to be so annoying. With a menacing smirk, Romdeo challenges Eyelet to a fight instead. As Romdeo's fist clenches, Eyelet watches as Prince begins to rise. Prince stands protectively in front of Eyelet, ready to face the bully. With a great swish, Romdeo swings his wooden staff, taunting them to see how long they will last. As someone shouts his name, Romdeo loses his balance and begins to stumble. With a sharp dun, a furious Bianca appears in the doorway, demanding an end to the undignified behavior. With a rush, Bianca runs towards Eyelet and Prince, asking if Allie is alright. Bianca gives a furious turn and a sharp glare towards the commotion. With a dramatic dun, Romdeo recoils in shock. Romeo panics and points to the man with the mustache, claiming it was all part of his sword training as the man nervously greets Lady Bianca. Bianca's gaze turns cold as she demands the man explain if inflicting violence on a servant is part of his teaching method. He sweats, claiming he was just trying to interest the young master in swordsmanship. Bianca quietly tells Allie to take Prince and get him treated, and Eyelet thanks her. As Eyelet helps the injured Prince limp away, the man calls out to Lady Bianca, but she warns him that her mother will hear about this. With a scatter, Eyelet empties a bundle of fresh herbs onto a desk. A bruised Prince stands nervously nearby, asking Allie if she's angry. She furiously rips and tears the herbs, insisting she's not angry at him but at the villain, and tells him to stay still while she makes a potion. Prince is surprised she's making a potion instead of an ointment, watching her with awe. With a gentle drizzle, Eyelet carefully pours a green liquid into a beaker. She confirms that her dad has been teaching her alchemy for a while. A flashback reveals Eyelet's father, an elite alchemist, emotionally praising her genius while she happily tells him she likes things as they are. A system window dings with a "Congratulations" message. Eyelet smiles, thinking that the perks of being a transmigrator are helping her out. With a final squeeze, she wrings the last drops of the glowing green potion into a glass. Eyelet presents the finished potion to Prince, telling him to drink it all at once. He gratefully accepts. Prince looks down at the cup, hesitating to drink the bitter-looking medicine. Eyelet asks what's wrong, and Prince admits he's struggling because potions are always so bitter. Eyelet tells him that's what makes it effective and tries to take it back, but Prince quickly promises to drink it. As Prince brings the cup to his lips, Eyelet has a sudden thought. She remembers her brother from her past life, who also hated bitter things. A flashback shows her and her brother at a medical center, where he wished for chocolate milk-flavored medicine. Eyelet realizes something important about chocolate milk-flavored medicine. She turns back to her table full of alchemical supplies and herbs. Struck by a brilliant idea, she declares that she might be able to make a tasty potion. She snatches the cup from a shocked Prince, telling him to wait just a second. With a clatter and a rustle, Eyelet grabs more ingredients for her new concoction. She begins to pound, thud, grind, and crush the ingredients before mixing them. A sudden boom erupts from the beaker, creating a plume of dark smoke that startles both of them. Eyelet proudly holds up her finished creation, a murky, black liquid. Prince stares in horror at the potion's deadly appearance, noting that it turned black. Determined to honor her effort, he decides to swallow it quickly and takes a large gulp. He is left speechless by the unexpected taste of the potion. Eyelet celebrates her success as Prince marvels at the tasty healing potion, realizing they could become rich. Eyelet's heart pounds Batum at the thought. Prince gratefully tells Allie she's amazing, feeling ashamed for always showing her his worst side. Eyelet reassures him, insisting that he's the amazing one. The system reveals Prince's hidden skill as a swordmaster with immense potential, offering a growth gift for 11 million cash. With a determined look, she tells Prince that he'll avenge himself. With a happy clink, Aylett eagerly summons a shower of gold coins to purchase the upgrade. Suddenly, sounds of fighting a clack, whack, and thwack echo from a nearby room. With a thud, a bandaged Romdeo hits the floor, groaning in pain. Romeo goes flying with a wail, crying out in frustration that he can't land a single hit. A stunned Prince stands nearby, now holding the wooden training staff. As Romdeo flails on the floor, he accuses Prince of tripping him. Prince apologizes, claiming he didn't realize what happened. The mustachioed instructor claps with joy, praising Prince for his amazing and rapid improvement. The instructor gives Prince advice on his counterattack stance, and Prince gratefully nods. Romeo angrily yells that the instructor is supposed to be teaching him, but the man apologizes, distracted by Prince's incredible talent. Fuming with jealousy, Romdeo scoffs that Prince is just a good-looking beggar. In a fit of anger, Romdeo kicks the wooden sword away with a clatter. Romeo mutters that if he had a real sword, things would have been different. In a sunny garden, someone calls for Prince to move some shovels inside. As Prince picks up the tools, he reflects that ever since that day, his body has felt lighter and stronger. Peeking over a balcony, Romdeo smirks, declaring he doesn't need swords to get his revenge. With a great shove, he pushes 2 large potted plants over the edge, telling Prince to try dodging them. The pots plummet towards the oblivious Prince with a whoosh. A sudden flash of insight strikes Prince. With a powerful smash, he swings the shovels like swords, shattering one of the falling pots midair. A shocked Romdeo ducks as the head of a shovel flies past him with a swish. With a resounding wham, Prince deflects the second pot. The pot shatters against the pillar, causing Romdeo to scream in terror. Standing in the wreckage, Prince calls out, asking if someone is there. Hiding with a pounding heart, Romdeo is convinced Prince has eyes in the back of his head and nervously says he'll come up. Romeo frantically runs away, apologizing for bullying Prince and promising never to do it again. Aylett arrives with a basket of potions and grins, thinking that Prince won't fall for cheap tricks under her care. She calls out to Prince, who stands among the broken pots and happily greets her back. Prince asks what Aylett is holding, and she explains they're potions and elixirs she's been inspired to make. She lists off some of the wilder flavors: grape juice, coffee, peppermint, and even steak. Continuing her list, she also mentions pasta, smoked salmon, and blueberry muffin flavors. With a sudden shove, she feeds Prince a medicinal supplement to replenish his energy. She tells him the tonic will help with his fatigue from sword practice, encouraging him to train hard for the Night Academy as he begins to munch. Late casually waves off his thanks, admitting she needed someone to taste her experiments anyway. Prince clarifies that he's not just thankful for the supplements. He explains that her belief in him, despite his flaws, is what pushes him to be a better person. With a radiant beam, he thanks Allie, calling her the best sister ever. Aylett is stunned into silence by his dazzling, heartfelt praise. With a comedic slap and smack, she gets flustered and tells him that if he's that grateful, he can play dolls with her for 100 hours. Prince freezes with a halt, surprised by her strange request to play dolls. Aylett panics internally, realizing she accidentally said something she used to tell her brother in her past life. Just then, a man calls for Prince, asking him for a hand. Aylett gives Prince a shove and a push toward the man, and he tells her he'll see her later. With a great dash, she runs off, shouting for him to forget what she said and use his time for training instead. Prince laughs and waves goodbye as he walks away. Holding a shovel, he wonders what that was about, recalling that he and Aylett have never played with dolls before. As she dashes away, Aylett makes a mental note to be more careful, knowing that getting caught as a transmigrator is a taboo in novels. As she walks down a hall with a clack, she worries about what would happen if she were found out. She bumps into a white-haired woman and apologizes, asking if she's all right. The woman asks if Aylett was the one who made the potion she's holding, and a surprised Aylett confirms it. The woman's eyes glow a peculiar purple as she gives Aylett an intense stare. Aylett can't help but flinch, feeling as if the woman is looking right through her as she asks for Aylett's full name. The woman holds one of the potions and says she knows her. Aylett feels a sense of unease, realizing there's something strange about this person. The two stand opposite each other in the sunlit hallway. A woman in a red dress rushes towards them, exclaiming that she wasn't told they were coming to visit. Aylett has a sudden realization. She wonders if the woman could be Cartalia Gillette. She recalls that Cartalia was mentioned in the novel as a solemn, exemplary cardinal from the Vatican where the male protagonist belonged. Most importantly, she remembers that Cartalia had a special ability. Looking out a window, Aylett thinks she remembers it because it was so interesting. She watches Cartalia in the garden with the family and understands why the cardinal was staring at her so intently. Aylett thinks that it's fascinating to see such an important character in person and that she looks just as she imagined. A system window notes that the voice that shapes the world is pleased to see her interest, and Aylett wonders what the male protagonist looks like. She excitedly daydreams about the male lead's brilliant silver hair and breathtaking ocean blue eyes. The system asks if she'd like to see him, but she sighs, remembering she's a transmigrator, stuck in the tutorial area until much later. She leans on the windowsill, looking determined. The sound of a click and clack echoes as someone walks down the hall. A dark-haired girl takes a step towards Aylett's door. After a quick knock, the girl asks if Allie is in there. Aylett welcomes Bia in, asking what brings her here since she thought her family was in the garden with Madame Gillette. Bianca flinches at the name. Bianca says they're better off without her, leaving Ailette confused. She explains that her grandmother has always avoided her, never speaking to or even looking at her. Bianca believes there must be a reason for the harsh treatment, insisting that her grandmother isn't a bad person. Ailette looks at her sadly, thinking of Bia's name. Bianca thinks to herself that while she's hurt, she's still defending her grandmother, adding that she also doesn't want to walk with her brother. Ailette gives Bianca a fierce grab and a hug, declaring that Bia deserves so much better. The door begins to creak open as the man with the mustache from the training incident calls out for Ailette Rodell. The mustachioed man greets a surprised Lady Bianca. Bianca looks confused, questioning why her grandmother is there. Ailette recalls that Bianca's grandmother hates her mother for being a commoner, extending that coldness to Bia. With a shudder, Ailette is horrified by the cruel memory. The mustachioed man blocks Bianca, explaining that Madame Gillette wishes to see Ailette alone. Ailette gives a reassuring smile to a nervous Bianca. Ailette finds Cartalia Gillette, waiting for her in a sunlit garden. Cartalia turns to face her, solemnly announcing her arrival. As Ailette approaches, Cartalia addresses her by her full name, Ailette Rodeline. With a gasp, Ailette's eyes sparkle at a lavish spread of desserts prepared for her. Cartalia looks at the feast, silently wondering how many people it's intended to feed. Ailette is taken aback when Cartalia mentions hearing that she and Bianca are close. Cartalia bluntly asks about Ailette's relationship with her granddaughter. Ailette thinks to herself that the cardinal doesn't beat around the bush. With a confident beam, Ailette gives a thumbs up, declaring they are super close friends. Ailette enthusiastically praises Bianca's skill with numbers, thinking to herself that her guess was correct. Cartalia's face twitches as she struggles to hide her pride, making Ailette realize the cardinal doesn't hate Bianca. Ailette asks if Madame Gillette came to see Bianca, and the cardinal questions why she would think that. Ailette makes a serious and shocking accusation. Cartalia must have been anticipating Bia's death. Cartalia stares back, her expression unreadable after the heavy accusation. Ailette continues, explaining that Cartalia rushed to the manor because Bianca survived, contrary to her expectations, as Bia stands alone in the garden. Cartalia's eyes narrow as she realizes Ailette is no ordinary child. Ailette sits calmly across from her, surrounded by golden light and flowers. A system window reveals Cartalia's secret ability. She was born with the Eyes of Fate. The Eyes of Fate allow one to see a person's lifespan, and with this power, Cartalia has seen the exact number of years her beloved granddaughter was destined to live. Ailette explains that she wondered why the cardinal remembered the name of a mere servant girl. She reveals the shocking truth. She and Bia were fated to die on the exact same day. With a sudden clunk, Cartalia stands in disbelief, asking how Ailette could know her secret. Ailette explains that those with the Eyes of Fate have the privilege of seeing, but they can neither intervene in others' fates, nor speak of what they see. Because of this rule, Cartalia had to brace herself to bid a lonely farewell to her granddaughter. A memory shows a pained Cartalia turning away. Cartalia is seen walking away, isolated in her painful knowledge. Ailette tells her she doesn't have to turn away anymore because Bia's lifespan has increased. With renewed intensity, Cartalia demands to know who Ailette truly is. Ailette simply smiles back at the demanding cardinal. A loud beep announces a system alert. The advocate of confidentiality has been dispatched, startling a chibi Ailette. With a glare, the system reveals a new god is watching Ailette with sharp eyes, making her feel its intense stare. Cartalia tells Ailette she doesn't need to answer her question. Her purple eyes glow as she declares she can see the truth for herself. Using her power, she sees an impossibly large, unnatural number floating above Ailette's head. Cartalia realizes Ailette must be a returnee, someone who has returned from the future. She connects the dots, asking if that's how Ailette knew the future and changed Bia's fate. Cartalia's tense expression softens into one of deep gratitude, thanking Ailette for saving her dear Bia. Ailette's thoughts praise Bianca's intelligence, curiosity, bravery, and kindness. Ailette smiles warmly, her admiration for her friend evident. Cartalia listens with a gentle, knowing smile. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Cartalia bows deeply, saying she cannot thank Ailette enough. Over a table of desserts, Cartalia thinks to herself that she never should have treated her that way. Facing away, she continues her thoughts of regret, wishing she had held her granddaughter's little hands. A sudden rustle makes Cartalia turn her head in surprise. Taking a quiet step forward, Bianca calls out to her grandmother. Startled, Cartalia asks a stunned Bianca how long she has been standing there. Hiding nearby, a chibi Ailette mentally declares her mission a success, knowing Bianca was there from the start. Bianca asks her grandmother if she was shunned because she was destined to die young. Cartalia sadly admits she never gave her a warm embrace or a single sweet word. With a sudden hug, Bianca embraces her grandmother, finally closing the distance between them. Bianca cries into her grandmother's dress, relieved that she isn't hated. Cartalia looks down at her granddaughter with an expression of pained love. Ailette sits on the steps, watching the heartwarming reunion with a gentle smile. Taking a step toward her, Cartalia formally addresses Ailette Rodeline, who jumps to attention. Cartalia bows her head gratefully, telling Ailette she is greatly indebted to her as she removes her necklace. With a sparkle, she holds out a golden cross, hoping Ailette and Bia will always be good friends. With a soft clack, Ailette accepts the necklace, promising that she will. Cartalea offers Ailette anything she wants, but Ailette says she's just happy to see them reconciled. Ailette's eyes widen as she has a brilliant idea, exclaiming, "Wait! That's it!" With newfound determination, she boldly requests to visit the Vatican. A system window reveals that the voice that shapes the world whispered a trick to leave the tutorial area, and Ailette realizes this is it. Cartalea smiles, calling it a pious wish that can be arranged, inviting Ailette to join her for the day of sacrifice. Ailette clenches her fist in triumph, ecstatic that her plan worked. She gazes at an image of the Grand Vatican, thinking about seeing the frustrating little, her thoughts complete as she pictures the male protagonist through a window. A boy with brilliant silver hair and sad blue eyes rests his head on his arms. The scene transitions through a soft blur of white flowers. Cartalea stands in the garden as servants prepare for their departure. She turns and calls to Ailette, telling her to come say goodbye before they leave. Ailette holds her father's hand, standing with Prinz as she happily agrees. Saying her goodbyes, Ailette brushes off her dad's concerned warnings, insisting she isn't a kid. As Bianca makes a dash toward her, Ailette's father reminds her she is, in fact, a kid, a truth she comically accepts. Ailette turns to Bianca, apologizing that her friend can't join her on the trip this time. Leaning in for a whisper, Bianca questions why Ailette packed so many things for a short visit, recalling her cluttered room. Ailette laughs nervously, brushing it off as simple excitement for the trip. Ailette thinks to herself that Bia is right to be worried. A system notification explains that while the tutorial area was easy, the universe is actually from a dangerous S-class novel. Looking at the imposing gates of the estate, she knows a difficult world awaits her beyond them. She tries to reassure herself, thinking it will be fine since the protagonist hasn't started his time loops yet. May takes a step forward with a gift box as Bianca says she has something for Ailette. Bianca presents her with a beautiful box of colorful macarons. Late thanks Bia, delighted by the delicious-looking gift, and says she has something in return. With a sly smile, Bianca whispers that Ailette has to tell her her real age next time, calling her a returnee. Ailette sweats, promising she will someday, as a system window notes that the advocate of confidentiality is giving her an intense stare. Cartalea instructs Ailette to stay close, as they will be using a teleportation stone, and Ailette gives a slight lean toward her. With a great V-woom, a man activates a glowing blue teleportation crystal. The crystal shatters, exploding into particles of brilliant blue light. Ailette shields her face as she is consumed by the blinding teleportation magic. A powerful whoosh marks their sudden departure from the manor. Ailette lowers her hand, looking slightly dazed after the teleportation ends. Her eyes widen in wonder as she takes in the new and bustling surroundings. She arrives at the breathtakingly grand Vatican, completely in awe. Ailette marvels at the massive crowd, and Cartalea explains it is for the day of sacrifice. Cartalea continues, saying that most of the children are there to be tested as potential stigma bearers. From above, Ailette and Cartalea look down upon the throng of people gathered below. Two boys in white robes observe the crowd, with one wondering how many of the applicants will pass. The black-haired boy scoffs, calling the applicants stupid for thinking their divine power could awaken so young. His blonde companion complains that even if they pass, they'll just cry to go home, lamenting that only orphans like them get locked up. With a soft clasp, a boy with brilliant silver hair closes his hands in solemn prayer. The black-haired boy approaches, asking what he's doing, and the silver-haired boy says he was praying for the children. Annoyed, the black-haired boy sarcastically asks if he thinks he's a saint and if he enjoys praying in futility. The silver-haired boy looks up with sad blue eyes and simply answers, "No." The black-haired boy is taken aback by the unexpected, solemn response. A powerful throb of energy pulses from the silver-haired boy's hand. The hand continues to glow with a menacing red light. With a strange VZZZT, the black-haired boy sees a list of holy virtues floating in the air before him. With a sudden FSHHH, the virtues of humility and kindness are corrupted, replaced by the sins of pride and envy. The silver-haired boy asks what he's staring at, and the black-haired boy quickly looks away, saying it's nothing. The silver-haired boy tells him to stop wasting time and to get going, to which the other boy agrees. In the dining hall, Cartalea explains that Vatican meals are modest, as Ailette watches the applicants eat. A boy looks glumly at his meager meal, while Ailette thinks to herself that it's not modest, it's just poverty. A man in robes makes a dash toward them, urgently calling for her holiness. Cartalea is annoyed by the interruption, but Ailette brightly insists she will be fine on her own. Cartalea apologizes and asks a man named Pavel to show Ailette around the Vatican for her. After Cartalea departs, Pavel approaches an ornate door. With a quick zoom, Pavel tries to ditch Ailette by telling her to go play with the other children. Ailette thinks that he clearly dislikes babysitting, but decides it's fine since she has her own business to attend to. Stepping into a garden, she thinks that her real goal is to find the elephant-type's herb, which is in danger of being weeded out. She spots the plant with a cheerful exclamation. She thinks about how this herb will be crucial for a future plague, and if she cultivates it now, she can develop a cure. With a greedy hee-hee, she clutches the plant, realizing she's gonna make an absolute fortune. With a giggle, she thinks it's a benevolent and profitable plan as she yanks and pulls the herbs from the ground. As she works, a sudden tap on her shoulder makes her freeze. She turns to find the silver-haired boy from earlier sitting beside her in the grass. He stares at her with his intense blue eyes. Ayelet looks back, a smudge of dirt now on her cheek, thinking about the boy before her. His thoughts describe her eyes, which shift between blue and turquoise in the light. With a soft wipe, he cleans the dirt from her face, his inner thoughts noting his own kind touch toward a stranger. He concludes his assessment by noting her breathtakingly good looks. He asks if she's a thief, and Ayelet is starstruck, realizing she's finally met Tesselid Argente, the male protagonist. Under intense pressure, system windows warn her to be careful not to influence the protagonist or reveal any spoilers. Ayelet grumbles about being nagged, even in death, a reaction that confuses Tesselid. Tesselid remains silent for a moment, observing her. He tells her not to overreact, explaining that he simply has an obligation to be kind. A system window explains Tesselid's unique burden. Practicing the 7 virtues strengthens his divine power, while succumbing to the 7 deadly sins will weaken it. His expression turns to one of gloom, as he wonders why he is the only one who has to bear such an obligation. Ayelet inwardly panics, realizing he isn't supposed to talk about his obligation and has already mentioned it twice. He explains that he came because he sensed a holy relic, not expecting to run into a child, prompting Ayelet to realize he sensed it on her. He reaches for the cross pendant around her neck. He identifies the pendant as the holy relic of Saint Agnes, a hero celebrated on the day of sacrifice. Ayelet is utterly shocked, realizing that Cartelia casually gave her a priceless hero's relic. Tesselid holds the cross, observing that he doesn't sense much divine power from Ayelet. With an intense stare, he questions why she possesses a holy relic, and she flinches, defensively stating that Cardinal Cartelia gave it to her. Changing the subject with a flinch, Ayelet pulls out a snack and cheerfully asks if he's hungry. Flustered, Tesselid stammers that he was just on his way to the dining hall. Elsewhere, the black-haired boy glances around, wondering where Tesselid has gone. Ayelet beams, reassuring Tesselid that being hungry is nothing to be ashamed of. She thinks his blush is adorable and insists he must be famished, while he internally notes that her expression is clearly making fun of him. She extends her hand, offering him a pink macaron, and adding that the food at the Vatican isn't good anyway. Tesselid refuses the treat, saying he's not supposed to eat such things and that he's returning to his friends, but Ayelet insists it's yummy. Her expression shifts to surprise as she questions his claim of having friends. With a sudden spring, Ayelet asks why he's so surprised by her question, and he quickly denies trying to insult her. Ayelet recalls that this reaction is tied to the original story's setting and Tesselid's tragic childhood. She remembers a passage from the novel where Tesselid was the sole survivor after all the other children died in a dungeon sink. The flashback concludes with Tesselid's memory of how he began losing something precious every year on the day of sacrifice. Back in the present, Tesselid watches her with concern, wondering what's wrong as the words friends and day of sacrifice echo in his mind. A deep rumble shakes the building, and the black-haired boy asks what the sound is. As the ground begins to quake, Ayelet realizes with horror that the catastrophic event from the novel is happening today. With a loud crash, Tesselid tackles Ayelet to the ground to shield her from harm. System notifications ding repeatedly as various entities comment on the disaster's timing, while Ayelet cries in frustration, hating that it's happening now. With a powerful yank, Tesselid pulls her to her feet, telling her to stay close to him. Horrified children scream as they are consumed by a monstrous, shadowy ooze. With the sound of a choo-choo train, Ayelet groans in pain, finding herself lying on something hard. She sits up, bewildered to find herself inside a toy train, which chugs along a track. A sudden dread reveals they've been transported to a vast room, filled with toys, trains, and other confused children. Ayelet groans with irritation, realizing exactly where she's ended up. A system window confirms her fears, announcing she has entered the Toy Mansion, an S-class dungeon where the story's tragedy begins. With a smack and a slap, Ayelet comically hits Tesselid while sitting on him, complaining that the average dungeon here is S-class as he begs her to get off. A blonde girl marvels at the room, excitedly exclaiming that it's full of toys. Tesselid urgently reaches out, warning the other children not to touch anything because they're inside a dungeon. With a deep whom, a sinister voice confirms that they are indeed in a dungeon. A surge of red energy gives way to a shwoom and a whoosh as a dark figure materializes, welcoming the young souls to Count Orsha's mansion. The man, wreathed in shadows, formally introduces himself as Rodrigo, the Count's butler.
Rodrigo smiles menacingly, telling the children they're going to have some fun together.
He takes a single, ominous step forward into the dimly lit room. He takes another deliberate step, walking toward the gathered children and piles of gift boxes. The children flinch and falter in fear, but Rodrigo's form shifts into a horned demon that beams brightly, telling them not to be tense and asking if they're hungry. He joyfully produces 2 golden bells, which ring and jingle. With a clack, a line of doll-like creatures in red hoods begins to tap its way into the room. As the dolls waddle and toddle forward, Rodrigo welcomes his guests with food and encourages them to take any toys they like. One girl asks if they can eat the treats, and as a boy takes a bite, he happily declares that it's yummy. Tessela desperately shouts, "No!" warning them not to carelessly eat anything provided by a demon. It's too late. The boy who ate clutches his throat and begins to cough violently. With a heavy thud, he collapses to the floor, choking and gagging in agony. Other children who ate the food also slump over, collapsing as they choke. With a bloody splatter, the boy's body vanishes in a poof of smoke, leaving behind a small stuffed bunny. Ayelet stares in wide-eyed horror, clutching her satchel as she realizes what just happened. A system window dings into existence directly in front of her. The window explains the plushie metamorphosis debuff, a black magic curse that transforms dying humans into plushies to preserve their souls. Ayelet looks around the room in dawning terror, realizing that all the dolls and toys are. The remaining children scream in panic, pounding their fists against the locked doors as they try to escape. Annoyed by the children's cries, Rodrigo announces a cruel game. Only the last survivor will be allowed to leave the dungeon. A system window announces a new quest. As Ayelet remembers this horrifying part of the story, she recalls that in the novel, Tesselid survived by becoming the only survivor of this S-class dungeon. With a sudden bump, she's knocked off balance in the ensuing panic. A boy stumbles away from her in terror, yelling for her to get away as he falls. After a gruesome splatter and a scream, a teddy bear lands with a soft plop in the boy's place. A heavy thump echoes as another child falls victim to the curse. A system beep issues a warning for excessive violence during the tutorial period, as Ayelet stares in shock. As a system message mitigates her mental shock, Tesselid fights a clown doll and calls out to her. With a sudden spring, Ayelet snaps out of it and grabs a nearby gift box. With a mighty wham, a blonde girl smashes a gift box into a clown monster's head. Ayelet urgently yells for the dazed girl to either run or defend herself. The blonde girl jolts in terror as the other children manage to creak open a locked door. With a loud burst, the doors fly open and the terrified children rush through. Ayelet breathes a sigh of relief, thanking the support system for saving her from using her ultimate skill too early. She resolves to save her special power for the boss fight and focus on the immediate threat. With a sudden whoosh, Ayelet screams a warning as a clown monster appears right behind an unaware Tesselid. His axe and the clown's weapon clash violently as he grimly invokes the baptism of condemnation. A brilliant whoosh of divine energy erupts from his attack. Ayelet dashes to his side, relieved he's safe, while he asks how she knew about the ambush. She begins to explain logically, but he cuts her off, clarifying that's not what he meant. Tesselid stands quietly for a moment, contemplating her strange awareness. Rodrigo claps his hands, ordering his waddling clown minions to bring back the escaping children. Ayelet interrupts Tesselid's thoughts, urgently telling him they have to get out of there now. They sprint down the hall, pursued by the relentless clown monsters. Dashing through the bloody corridor, they rush past the plush remains of the other children. Tesselid decides they should hide in a nearby closet until the clowns have passed. Ayelet pants and wheezes, completely exhausted from the run, as Tesselid tells her she's clearly not alright. While she struggles to breathe, a system window mocks her F-class stamina, prompting her to vow to train as soon as she gets home. She suddenly notices a deep, bleeding gash on Tesselid's arm. Reaching out, she identifies the injury as a wound from decaying poison. With a quick grab, Tesselid intercepts her hand, stopping her from touching the wound. He stares at her, startled and confused by her actions. Ayelet smiles cheekily, telling him he's squeezing her hand as if she's the villain. Squeezing her hand tighter, he ignores her joke and demands to know how she knows his name and who she is. They hold a tense, silent gaze inside the cramped closet. With a determined yank, Ayelet pulls on his arm, insisting his injury is more important than his questions. Tesselid dismisses it as a scratch, but she rummages in her bag, arguing that the undead poison will cause his arm to rot, and that she knows stigma bearers can't heal themselves. She raises a potion as he asks in disbelief how she could possibly know all that. She presents the glowing green potion, telling him to stop pretending and drink the cure. Tesselid eyes the expensive potion, questioning how she recognized the poison, while she playfully calls him a curious boy. He mumbles to himself, realizing with confusion that his divine power did not weaken when he spoke of his sacred obligation to her. Ayelet wonders if he means the commandment of virtues and sins, and realizes its frustrating rules might not apply to her. She remembers he wasn't penalized for mentioning his obligation in the garden either. Leaning closer, he explains his divine power strengthens with kindness and gently rubs the cut on her cheek. The holy mark on his arm begins to shimmer as he confirms his power is growing stronger, not weaker. Ayelet is overjoyed, realizing she has an awesome perk that bypasses his system, while a system window notes a critic's disapproval. Tesselid stares at her intently, repeating his demand to know who she is. Ayelet firmly replies that her identity is a secret she cannot reveal. He pushes her hand away, but she promises she can tell him one thing for certain. Looking him directly in the eyes, she earnestly declares, "I'm on your side, Tesselid." The white-haired boy, Tesselid, appears anxious, clutching a golden bell charm on his chest. A generous spread of sandwiches, bottles, fruit, and waffles is laid out, accompanied by text declaring it abundant for a good fight. Ayelet, the pink-haired girl, smiles broadly and innocently, surrounded by pink floral accents. Tesselid holds the box of food, blushing slightly and looking flustered. An unseen speaker's hand gently squeezes an object on the white-haired boy, thinking he can't be evil if he can wear a holy relic. Ayelet pushes open a door, telling Tesselid that the clowns are gone and it's time to fight, while he awkwardly asks her name. Ayelet, the pink-haired girl, cheerfully introduces herself as Ayelet Rodaline, and asks to be called Ayelet. Tesselid, looking awkward, thanks Ayelet for both the potion and the food. A chibi Ayelet laughs and thinks to herself how cute and adorable Tesselid is for being so shy and awkward. With a creak, Ayelet steps through a door, asking Tesselid if he has a plan, explaining her friend should be nearby if everyone was transported here, and she plans to join them to fight the boss. Ayelet declares she's coming along as potions are crucial, but Tesselid, with a shocked expression, insists it's too dangerous. Ayelet, the pink-haired girl, passionately argues that she would rather go with him than hide and wait to be killed if he and his friends fail. Ayelet smirks slyly, thinking she's just looking for a free ride to the boss's chamber and will rely on him until it's time for her divine advent. With a crackle, a voice introduces itself as Rodrigo, the butler, after testing the microphone as Ayelet and Tesselid look up. The gray-haired man with horns asks if they enjoyed playing hide-and-seek, noting that the East Wing has many stigma bearers, while the silver-haired boy's West Wing seemed grim, perhaps implying his weakness or isolation. The voice informs them they must be hungry after the game, and a feast awaits them at the banquet hall, instructing them to gather within an hour. The horned, gray-haired man, smiling sinisterly, cautions the children against being late for their meal, and directs their attention to the manor's fireplaces. Two small children peek from behind furniture as the voice explains, Kalnorsh's manor features a modern, interconnected central heating furnace. A close-up of an ornate fireplace glows red, and the voice reveals that every fireplace can unleash the hellfire of the living flame. The voice warns that in 1 hour, flames will spread across the entire manor, with the sole exception of the banquet hall. With a click, the voice concludes its message, telling them not to become cookies in the oven. Tesselid wonders what he's planning, while Ayelet rummages in her bag, suspecting the banquet food contains dangerous hallucinogens. Ayelet reflects on the novel's events, where children couldn't resist the drugged banquet food, a scene depicted by a broken bowl, fork, and spoon splattered with blood. A bloodied sword is shown as Ayelet recounts how the children tragically lost their minds and began killing each other, prompting Tesselid to question her knowledge. Ayelet turns with her bag, stating that her knowledge isn't important now, and they must stop the tragedy from happening. Ayelet grins brightly at Tesselid, inviting him to play with fire. A gloved hand holds an open golden pocket watch, indicating the time for action is near. The horned, gray-haired man, with a sinister smile, snaps his fingers and announces, "It's time." The horned, gray-haired man takes a step, and with a creak, opens a door, telling Helveros it's time to get to work. A skull flickers into a powerful blaze of fire, and a thought bubble reveals it's time to work. The gray-haired man wipes his face and orders the flame creature to heat the manor, except the banquet hall, and warm his bath, complaining about dust, while the flame creature quietly expresses hunger and weakness. The gray-haired man points to a corpse, instructing the flame creature to eat it, but the flame creature replies that it's a vegetarian. The gray-haired man ARGHS angrily, berating the pathetic, corrupt demon for being a vegetarian and threatening to throw it into permafrost if it doesn't get to work. With a slam, the gray-haired man instructs the flame creature to heat his bathwater to exactly 666 degrees, threatening icy water if it's any cooler. The flame creature squirms and wriggles miserably in the fireplace, lamenting its hatred for cold and its evil employer, feeling hungry. The flame creature dawdles and slows, finding the situation upsetting and complaining about consuming old bones for 200 years. The flame creature scatters leaves around itself, wistfully wondering when it will finally get to eat fragrant plants. The flame creature, eyes wide with sudden realization, utters a shocked, "Huh? Pea plants?" With a dun, the flame creature's eyes sparkle with excitement, ecstatically shouting, "Plants!" as it sees lush greenery. With a joyous flourish, the flame creature consumes the plants, happily exclaiming that it's finally having its first proper meal in 200 years. Ayelet and Tesselid sit together, with Ayelet holding a book and excitedly announcing, "It's a plant party." A blonde boy, in white robes, happily holds a lollipop and a small cross, surrounded by floating candy. With a slap and a wish, the black-haired boy hits the blonde boy, who yells, "No, my cake," in protest. The blonde boy claims he just wanted to check the demon-tainted food, while the black-haired boy retorts, questioning if he was merely curious about his hitting strength. The black-haired boy, with a slight frown, tells the blonde boy that he doesn't need to be fed to discover his hitting power. The black-haired boy watches in horror as other children shriek, crash, and clatter in a chaotic and violent fight within the banquet hall. The black-haired boy deduces it must be a hallucinogen as the children's eyes change, and they start attacking each other, one child dashing forward with an arg. The blonde boy grabs a dark-haired boy, restraining him as he brandishes a knife. The black-haired boy, looking aghast, asks the blonde boy if he intends to use divine power against a child, while the blonde boy struggles with the attacker. The blonde boy smiles with a grim expression, stating that the child looks like a demon to him. A dark-haired child with messy hair and glowing red eyes growls and gurrs ferociously, looking completely enraged. With a loud burst and a clatter, a cheerful white-haired butler enters the room, surprised the game has already started. With a thud and a crash, the dining hall descends into chaos as children attack each other, declaring it a mealtime of insanity. A sinister man with a turban cackles wickedly, encouraging the children to affectionately stab and cut one another. Now appearing demonic and covered in a strange, filthy substance, the butler furiously demands that Helveros come out. With a soft wish, a small green flame spirit materializes from the smoke, apologizing for not being able to control it. The demon butler complains about being made filthy right after his bath, then stops, questioning the unusual color of the flame. A knife and fork fall to the floor with a sharp clatter as the curse's influence wanes. Children begin to snap out of the trance, confusedly asking why they're holding knives as another cries out from a fresh cut. Tessalid observes the chaos, realizing with surprise that the other children are snapping out of it. The demon butler turns, his attention caught by the strange green weeds left behind by the flame spirit. He menacingly questions the hesitant flame spirit, demanding to know what it ate. The tiny spirit stammers an apology as the butler takes an intimidating step closer. With a sharp toss, the butler flings the spirit aside with an oof, declaring that he knew it all along. As the leaves rustle in his gloved hand, he identifies the plant as a powerful antidote herb. A dark, shadowy figure furiously scolds the spirit, calling it a fool for spreading antidote fumes instead of working. With a heavy stomp, the entity crushes the useless furnace flame, leaving only a smoldering red gem as Tessalid and a blonde boy look on. The demon butler declares that mealtime is over and it's time to begin the next game. The building begins to rumble and tremor violently, causing the ceiling to crumble down on the terrified children. With a loud crack, a monstrous mole with glowing red eyes bursts from the floor as the children scream. The blonde boy flails as dirt gets everywhere, while Tessalid tensely wonders if the creature is another enemy. The mole sits placidly as a thought bubble reveals the dead man's flower is now blooming. A confused Tessalid stares at the mole, wondering what a dead man's flower actually does. He suddenly lets out a sharp cry of alarm. With a comical tada and a poof, small sprouts begin growing out of the children's heads, sending them into a panic. A monstrous, toothy mouth smirks as a voice confirms the seeds have successfully taken root and are now growing. Rodrigo spreads his arms with a theatrical sparkle, gleefully explaining the children will serve as nutrients for the dead man's flower, the most beloved flower in the demon realm. He elaborates that the flower blooms into different colors depending on the pot, meaning its human host. The butler continues, explaining that the dark violet color is the rarest and most sought after, a precious flower said to bloom only once in 1,000 years. Rodrigo clasps his hands in giddy anticipation, wondering aloud if he'll be lucky enough to witness the rare bloom today. The giant mole babbles to itself, fantasizing about the fame it would receive if the rare flower bloomed. Tessalid shouts for everyone to stop moving, warning them that the flower grows faster when the mole sees them. He furiously yells at the flailing blonde boy, Fal, telling him to stay still and stop distracting him. Fal complains that he got some of the dirt in his mouth, revealing a small flower already about to bloom on his head. With a sudden yank, Tessalid grabs Fal's sprout, angrily shouting that he's gonna pluck the flower out of his idiotic head. Rodrigo calmly advises against pulling the flower, warning that it will immediately dig its roots into their skulls if they try. Tessalid and Fal freeze in terror at the grim new information. As Rodrigo sits casually atop the giant mole, someone realizes there's only one way out of this. Tessalid and Fal take a firm step forward, resolving that they must defeat the butler and the mole to escape. Rodrigo grins, accepting their challenge, and mockingly remarking that the color of their flower looks awful anyway. He promises to make short work of them as a fleeing child makes a frantic dash in the background. A white-haired boy comes to a halt, out of breath, as Ailette approaches from behind and asks if he's all right. The beautiful dark violet flower shimmers on Ailette's head as she tells the boy they need to go. As her rare flower sparkles, she declares that they have to find the other stigma bearers. A bloody dagger falls to the ground with a sharp clang. Rodrigo stands with his arms crossed, coolly complimenting the two boys for holding out so well with just a damage dealer in support. Tessalid and Iphael kneel on the ground, wounded and exhausted, the bloody dagger lying just out of reach. Rodrigo smiles with predatory eyes, remarking on how truly weak stigma bearers are. With a heavy stomp, the giant mole looms over the boys, declaring its intent to kill them both. Iphael desperately tries to lift Tessalid, then mutters to himself that he never thought he'd say it, but he misses Tessalid in that moment. Hiding under a table as the mole stomps closer, another child overhears Ephiel's strange confession, calling it the weirdest last words ever. Tessalid glares, angrily declaring that the person they miss was the most powerful. With a whoosh, the giant mole looms over the boys as Tessalid thinks that he would have defeated it. Tessalid clenches his fists with a squeeze, adding that he would have done so in the most annoying way possible. Suddenly, a massive boom of energy erupts from the ground. With a swoosh, a white-haired boy swings a staff as the shocked demon butler exclaims, "What?" The boy unleashes a powerful blue slash of energy directly at the giant mole. The mole crashes back with a thud as the butler stumbles, demanding to know how the new boy got there. The blonde boy, Fal, smiles over his shoulder, telling the newcomer he was right. The white-haired boy, Hestio, stands ready for battle, holding his staff. With a furious whoosh, the demon butler curses the insolent stigma bearer. He's interrupted as Ailette takes a determined step forward, calling out to Tessalid. The butler glances down, his eyes widening as he spots the dark violet flower on Ailette's head, which begins to shimmer and sparkle. He stares in complete shock, recognizing it as a dark violet dead man's flower. His heart pounds with a loud batum of excitement. With an excited slap and smack to the mole's head, he fantasizes about selling the rare flower on the black market or bribing a demon lord with it. Shaking off his greed, he demands Ilette's name, and she introduces herself as Ailette Rodaline. He raises his hand, telling little Miss Ailette that he likes her and has a special proposal. With a sinister grin, he invites her to meet the great Count Orsh, even promising her a pretty dress. Tesselid grabs Hestio, telling him to stop his tricks, but Hestio is confused by his words. Ailette instantly considers the offer, thinking that maybe she should accept. She takes a step forward, startling Tesselid, and agrees on one condition, that they release all the children in the dungeon. The butler flinches, stammering in disbelief at her bold demand. Ailette beams, happily accepting the deal. With an excited tap-tap and a whoosh, the delighted butler gestures for her to follow him. His path is suddenly blocked by an axe that lands with a sharp thwack, forcing him to leap back. With a quick yank, Tesselid pulls Ailette back away from the butler. He takes a protective step in front of her, shielding her from the demon. Ailette looks up at his back, thinking his name with concern. She begins to sweat, silently panicking that he's ruining her plan with his cool words. She visualizes her plan to power her way through, rescue the kids, and then personally deliver a punch of justice to the boss. With a furious whoosh of red energy, the butler announces he's leaving to check the flower's price before returning to kill them, telling Ailette to wait. Ailette reaches out to stop him as a system window declares that the shortcut to the boss's room has set sail. Tesselid turns to her, angrily asking why she made that deal. From under a table, another child tells Ailette that she's not a saint. Ephael puts an arm around a stunned Tesselid, agreeing that she doesn't have a special role. With a ding, a system window notes that the voice that shapes the world is surprised to be looking down on an S-class transmigrator. Ailette recalls that her status as a transmigrator exempts Tesselid from the penalties for wrath and other sins against the virtues. Because of this, she realizes he's able to show his true emotions to her for the first time. Feeling glum, she comically laments that this just resulted in her getting scolded by a 10-year-old. Elsewhere, Ethel and the other boy are shocked, whispering to each other that they've never heard Tesselid speak so candidly. With an arg of frustration, Ailith throws a tantrum, apologizing for getting the frustrating role wrong. Turning to the still angry Tesselid, she promises she won't do it again, in an attempt to calm him down. He softens, apologizing for getting mad at her. The moment is interrupted as two other children begin to wail, sob, and weep, crying that they want to go home. Tesselid suggests they regroup somewhere else, and Ailette nods in agreement. They rush away from the chaotic scene together. The forgotten red gem left by the flame spirit begins to gleam on the ground. Ailette notices the sparkling object and picks it up with a clack. Ephael calls for her to hurry up before Tesselid gets mad again, which Tesselid quickly denies. Deciding to bring it along, Ailette quickly tucks the gem away with FWIP and hurries to catch up. Ailette runs from Tesselid, asking if he's angry, but he denies it, chasing her through the elegant, crumbling hall. A glitching system screen with the name Count Orshi appears with a flicker and crackle, welcoming someone. A figure in a hooded cloak is surrounded by glitching Count Orshi system windows that mumble and murmur welcome messages. A boy with black hair and a white robe is introduced as Hestio Legionelle, standing before a pink and white patterned background. Another boy with blonde hair and a white robe is introduced as Ephael Chalatino, standing against a purple, star-filled background. Ailette Rodaline is introduced, smiling sweetly with flowers in her hair and an ornate green dress, against a floral background. Ailette thanks Tesselid for introducing her to his friends, but Hestio, Ephiel, and Tesselid all instantly respond that they are not friends, with Tesselid looking away from the group. A variety of sparkling potion bottles and jars clatter out of a brown bag, surrounded by flowers. Ephael and Hestio look down in surprise, asking what all the items are as a clink sounds from a clear jar. Ailette explains that they are healing potions she made with alchemy, which she had saved in case Tesselid's friends got hurt. Hestio and Ephael lean into each other, declaring they are the best of friends and can't live without Tesselid, then snatch and grab the potions, as Ailette, with a flower in her hair, praises their honesty. Hestio wonders if the potions are made of the herbs that made the fire demon spew antidote fumes, then realizes with a woe that Ailette dealt him an awesome blow, declaring it's time to land a big blow against the dungeon boss. Ephael looks sad, explaining that he thinks they are the only ones who will be fighting the boss, as the four children sit in a circle on the floor. Tesselid asks Hestio if that means there are 11 stigma bearers, and Hestio confirms it, recalling the butler mentioned it during their fight. Tesselid and Ephael sit on a giant stuffed toy, with Tesselid explaining that all the stigma bearers in the other part of the mansion have been wiped out, as a bloodied scene below shows a teddy bear and other plushies scattered around. Tesselid, Ephael, and Hestio stand together, their expressions solemn, as a grim overlay emphasizes the serious news. Ailette, smiling brightly and holding out her hands, urges the boys not to get discouraged, then states that if only the person who caused the Divine Advent was with them, as she flinches defensively. Tesselid asks about the Divine Advent, and Hestio explains that a powerful one was recently detected in the Vinchester Kingdom, and the religious order is desperately searching for its cause. Ailette internally frets with an ugh, realizing she'll be dragged into the strict religious order if caught, resolving to watch out. A chibi Eyelet cartoonishly swishes and flails her arms, proclaiming with a ding that her identity isn't important right now. Eyelet confidently declares they make a decent team and can defeat the boss if they work together, and Tessellid agrees that they should focus on beating their enemy. Hestio and FAL, now holding a sandwich, agree they can go with Plan B if their current strategy fails, with FAL exclaiming it's a sandwich and Hestio asking what Plan B is. FAL munches on his sandwich, reminding Hestio that the butler said the last survivor would be allowed to leave, making his plan clear. Ayelet gives a sarcastic, "Oh sure, that's so helpful," as the two boys squabble off panel, and she is hit with a complaint, asking why she's hitting him. Tessellid swings his glowing sword with a powerful slash through the air, fighting a shadowy enemy as FAL looks on in the background. 4 chibi figures representing Tessellid, Eyelet, Hestio, and Ephiel are shown, with Tessellid and Hestio drinking from small cups with a gulp-gulp, and Eyelet and Ephiel eating snacks with a nom-munch. Tessellid delivers a powerful wham with his glowing sword, striking an unseen enemy. The 4 chibi figures are shown again, with Tessellid and Hestio drinking from cups with a gulp-gobble, and Ayelet and Ephiel eating snacks. Hestio whooshes a magical attack at a clown enemy, with Ephiel standing behind him as rocks and debris explode around them. The 4 chibi figures are shown once more, with Tessellid and Hestio chugging their drinks with a glug-chug, and Ayelet and Ephiel eating their snacks. The 4 children stand before a grand, ornate door that glows red, and a day sound fills the dark room. Ayelet excitedly exclaims, "Ta-da!" announcing that they've reached the boss's chamber, while Hestio looks surprised, asking how they got there so fast. Ayelet, with a sly grin, explains she used the map in the system window to find the shortest route, as a holographic map appears beside her. Hestio questions Ayelet, noting she seems familiar with the mansion and has an endless supply of potions in her bag, asking who she really is. Ayelet is about to speak when Ephiel takes a step forward, interjecting that this is not what Hestio should be asking, then tells Ayelet there's something he must say before they fight the boss. Ephiel demands another grape juice flavored potion, stating with a die-done that it tastes so good. The ornate double doors of the boss chamber glow menacingly as Ephiel's voice can be heard quarreling and bickering, insisting the potion is delicious and he's never tasted one so pleasant. Ayelet looks at Ephiel, who is now by her side in front of the ornate door, and promises him something even tastier if they make it out safely, as she takes a step. Ephiel looks thoughtful, repeating, "if we get out safely," to himself. Ayelet enthusiastically declares it's time to enter the boss chamber, and the doors creak open with a red glow. A hooded, robed figure with a pale face stands solemnly, a red beam of light piercing through its chest, as a dun sound emanates from below. The 4 children stand before the hooded figure, who welcomes them, declaring with a loom that he is Count Orche, the master of this dungeon. Ayelet's face turns serious as she identifies the gigantic man as the S-Class dungeon boss mentioned in the novel. Ayelet narrates that Count Orche was described as a reserved gentleman with an egg-shaped body, and though the novel didn't detail his power, she is sure he is much stronger than Arpiman, as he stomps ominously, and a glitching system window appears with his name. Ayelet looks concerned, wondering what is wrong with the system window and why it is censored. Ayelet gasps, "Oh," as the 3 boys dash past her, entering the boss chamber with Hestio, Ephiel, and Tessellid in the lead. Ayelet dramatically throws her hands up, shouting that the boss is super strong and she'll take it from here, wanting to fight alone. Ayelet looks surprised, then the scene shifts to Hestio, Tessellid, and Ephiel fighting Count Orche, who crashes through the floor with a boom as a narrator notes they're putting up a better fight than expected. Ayelet wonders if their improved combat abilities are due to her potions, but still finds it strange that an S-Class boss is so weak, sensing something is wrong. Count Orche is struck by a powerful slash attack from Hestio, then falls with a thud as Ephiel and Tessellid stand nearby. Ephiel cheers in victory while Hestio looks on with quiet concern. Standing in the rubble, one of the children wonders why the exit gate hasn't appeared. Tessellid freezes, suddenly sensing that something is terribly wrong. He turns with a look of intense, sudden realization. With a powerful shove, Ayelet pushes a surprised Tessellid out of the way. A massive boom of violent energy erupts from the very spot where he just stood. As the ceiling begins to crumble, Ayelet explains she knew he'd be targeted first, leaving Tessellid utterly confused. With a crackle and a VZZT, a mysterious system window appears, displaying the name Count Orche. With a bright flash, the window clarifies the defeated enemy was merely a low-ranking substitute for the real Count. Ayelet explains to Hestio that they didn't fight the true boss, admitting she was too focused on the novel's plot to see it. The true demon butler, Rodrigo, makes his menacing return. As the room begins to quake and rumble, Rodrigo praises Ayelet's talent and renews his offer for her to join him. He then shyly proposes, asking Ayelet to become his fiancée. Rodrigo gushes about the forbidden romance between a human and a demon, sure his family won't object. Ayelet hangs her head in disgust, muttering that his proposal is anything but romantic. With a sudden crash of fury, she berates a stunned Rodrigo for proposing without a ring. With a panicked zoom, Rodrigo dashes off, promising his dear fiancé he'll find a romantic ring.
The boys are completely baffled by her demand, and Hestio worries that she is trying to sacrifice herself again.
She reveals her stall tactic, pulling out 3 potions with a clack and telling them to drink. She offers one to Iphael, telling him it's his favorite grape juice flavor. Iphael stares at the offered potion in silent hesitation. He points out to Alet that their physical wounds are the least of their problems right now. Meanwhile, Hestio tries to give a potion to a collapsed and wounded Tessalid. The potion falls to the ground with a clatter as a voiceover laments that it's come to this. Iphael announces it is time for Plan B, declaring that Tessalid is the strongest and most deserving of survival as his dagger begins to shine. He raises the dagger to himself in a grim act of sacrifice, apologizing to Alet. With a sharp jolt, Hestio shouts for him to wait. With a sickening thud, a desperate voice screams Iphael's name. A narration box explains that this tragic event was how the story originally unfolded in the novel. The original brutal timeline is shown. After Hestio's death, Iphael killed the other children, and then himself to ensure Tessalid's escape. The narrator explains that Iphael accepted the role of a villain for the greater good, questioning the cruel plot forced upon the children. The scene changes as Alet cheerfully tells Iphael to have a good nap. With a thud, Iphael collapses, fast asleep on the floor. A confused Hestio holds up a wobbling Tessalid, wondering what just happened. As Tessalid collapses with a flop, Hestio realizes with dawning horror that Alet gave them sleeping potions instead of healing ones. Rodrigo returns with a sprint, triumphantly presenting a sparkling ring to his dear fiancé. Alet decisively announces it's time for Plan C, leaving a confused Hestio to wonder what that is. With a firm shove, she pushes Hestio forward, declaring that he'll take the front while she covers the back. Golden light gathers as Alet clasps her hands, preparing a powerful ability. Her eyes glowing gold, she unleashes her power, crying out, "Divine Advent!" With a tremendous whoosh, the surrounding area shatters from the immense force of her energy. Hestio stares in utter disbelief, overwhelmed by the incredible power radiating from her. Rodrigo recoils in terror, realizing this immense power is coming from his fiancé. Now transformed with flowing blonde hair, Alet unleashes a flume of golden energy, activating her ultimate skill, Siege Barrier. As the barrier takes effect, the parasitic flowers on the sleeping boys crumble away, and Alet notes her power has grown. With a furious schwoom, a shadowy Rodrigo charges with a scythe, vowing to rip out her heart for toying with him. Alet counters with a crash of divine retribution, repeatedly chanting the spell as lightning strikes her foe. Though heavily burned, Rodrigo grins through the smoke, declaring her attack only fuels the rage of his love as he clenches his weapon. He dashes toward her, and Alet panics, realizing she's vulnerable at close range. With a sharp clang, Hestio's blade blocks the attack, stepping in to protect Alet from the demon's lunge. Hestio vows fiercely that he won't let the demon touch her. Alet declares Tessalid is her tank and activates her divine knowledge search engine for a buff skill. With a grit of his teeth, the wounded Rodrigo curses the worthless little lamb. He unleashes a massive V-womb of dark energy, telling them to stop getting in his way. Hestio falters, skidding to a halt against the immense pressure. As Hestio faces the darkness, Alet's glowing hand reaches out to support him from behind. A system window announces that the intermediate skill Divine Hymn has been activated, engulfing a surprised Hestio in golden light. Gripping his glowing sword, he realizes this power is far beyond his own skill. A loud clang and clank echo as steel meets dark power. With a powerful clang, Hestio's attack lands, creating a massive clash that sends Rodrigo reeling. The demon stares in disbelief, his face crumbling as he wonders how this happened. Alet smirks confidently, announcing that Plan C's preparations are complete. With a vicious wham, Rodrigo swings his massive scythe in a desperate counterattack. With a dark swoon of power, he declares that the great Count Orlok will not be stopped by children. Suddenly, a whoosh of crackling blue energy vines erupts, ensnaring a shocked Count Orsha. The vines tighten with a crack, and Ailet's voice pronounces the word omnipotence. A golden light shines as the final spell is named Holy Purge. Ailet points her finger, unleashing the beam of pure light. A brilliant flash of light strikes Count Orsh, splitting his vision. With a deafening whoosh, the holy beam bisects the demon completely. Hestio watches in shock as a final agonized scream of A-A-A-R-G-H echoes. Count Orlok watches his own hand dissolve into light, crying out that his body is disappearing. He lets out a final shriek, questioning why the god who abandoned the world has returned as he vanishes. A final, deafening boom signals the demon's complete annihilation. With a gentle fwish, Hestio stands alone in the aftermath, stunned into silence. He realizes Alet is the one the religious order has been searching for. In a cute aside, Alet pats a doll of Tessalid, praising Tez and reflecting on how dangerous S-class enemies are. Hestio continues to stare, still processing the unbelievable event. Alet happily hugs a book, thanking her god for letting her use Divine Advent before her powers awakened. A skeptical Hestio remarks on the Order's uncharacteristic generosity before asking Alet for a favor. She asks him to keep her power a secret, explaining that she doesn't want to join an order yet. Alet worries that the Goody Two-Shoes protagonist might refuse her request for the sake of humanity. She clutches her book, her expression filled with concern. Hestio reassures her that she doesn't have to join the Order, regardless of whether she's a saint. He asks if her odd statement is meant to be a compliment as she looks up at him. The scene shifts to Hestio holding Ailet's book, which glows with ancient runes. A bright blue swoosh of magical energy emanates from the pages. Hestio stares in awe as the book's power surrounds him. His eyes widen as the book's purpose becomes clear: to defend his partner. He excitedly tells a shocked Eilette that it even allows him to share half her pain. She scolds him for being happy about getting hurt for her, while he notes her skill is as worrisome as she is. With a nervous peek, Eilette hopes her own skill will be something better. She looks upon a glowing screen of runes, discovering her new ability. She excitedly tells Tesselid that her healing skills will be 5 times more effective on him. As Hestio expresses his shock, Eilette points to a pop-up window, saying there's a description. With a quick swipe, she impatiently dismisses a glitching blue window. She sways dizzily, complaining about an annoying, lingering presence, and Hestio rushes to support her. Leaning on him, Eilette asks Tez for one more favor. The white-haired boy looks down at her with concern, asking what she needs. Gripping his cloak for support, she earnestly calls out his name, Tez. A voice fondly says goodbye, hoping to meet again. The pink-haired girl gives a bright, heartfelt smile. Through a hazy vision, a white-haired boy desperately calls Eilette's name. A narration explains that after the dungeon incident, a special debuff thankfully prevented any casualties among the children. The rescued children are tearfully reunited with their families. As the pink-haired girl is carried away, the narrator reveals no child had enough divine power for the attack, and the boss was already dead. It was officially concluded that a mysterious hero killed the boss and vanished. In bed, the pink-haired girl pants, exhausted and feverish. With a gentle touch, a hand checks her for a fever. A worried thought reveals her temperature is still dangerously high. The observer wonders if this fever is the price for her immense power. With a dash, a robed boy urges Tesselid to come help outside. Tesselid takes a step, pausing to look at the pink-haired girl sleeping in her bed. He recalls her bright smile and promised to see him again. The pink-haired girl sleeps soundly in an ornate bed with a soft whoosh. She turns over in her sleep. Her golden cross necklace begins to glitter and sparkle with light. A blonde woman looks over the sleeping girl, wondering why she fell asleep again. The woman pokes her cheek, joking that her holy fever is from a poor diet for a legendary saint. The blonde woman smiles down at her with a gentle expression. With a rattle and clatter, 2 panicked skeletons wave their arms. A tiny fire spirit springs into the air, excitedly shouting about farming and grass. The pink-haired girl watches the happy skeletons and warns the fire spirit, Helveros, not to burn anything. The black-haired girl asks if Helveros is truly a demon, but Eilette finds him adorable and useful for winter heating. Eilette laughs about befriending a demon, while the black-haired girl asks if she is sure this is okay. The black-haired girl clarifies she's worried about Allie, who came back with another serious fever. Eilette looks downcast as her friend Bia expresses her regret for not knowing about the danger. Eilette hugs her adorable friend, assuring her she's fine and saved the other children. She thinks to herself that she successfully prevented the novel's disaster. A memory shows the 3 boys, Tesselid, Hestio, and Ephiel, all alive and well. She wonders aloud if it was okay to change the protagonist's origin story. With a sharp stab, a system notification from the Advocate of Confidentiality reprimands her, making her yelp in pain. A ding announces the Advocate's frustration, but another ding from the voice that shapes the world says this is expected of an S-class transmigrator. More system dings show the Advocate glaring in response. Eilette quietly cheers for Lord Voice, while a confused Bia asks what's happening. Eilette rises, announcing she's going to chat with the gods for a bit, which Bia interprets as a prayer. As Eilette walks away, a sparkling Bia thinks she's a true and devout apostle. Eilette reflects that she was transmigrated into the 17th timeline of Tesselid's life. She worries about whether her actions during the tutorial will affect the entire novel. A ding in the sky from the voice that shapes the world confirms that they will. Eilette asks if this applies to all timelines, and the voice confirms his friends will now always survive, and his shared skill remains. She quietly asks what this means for her own existence. The scene shifts to the white-haired boy staring out a large, sunlit window. Eilette looks down, her expression somber and uncertain. With a plop, she sits against a tree, glad she improved his childhood, but worried about the consequences. A brief glowing memory of her smile flashes by. She realizes Tez will be confused about why he is the only one who remembers her. A cartoonish Tesselid desperately asks other children about Eilette, but no one knows who she is. He begins to wail, insisting he met her and they promised to see each other again. Eilette feels a pang of guilt, hoping being gaslighted by his entire world won't drive him insane. The Advocate of Confidentiality scolds her for acting recklessly, making a pink blob creature groan in annoyance. The voice that shapes the world scolds the Advocate for yelling, but the Advocate insists he properly educate his follower. Eilette's eyes sparkle with wonder as she exclaims, "Wow!" With a determined clench of her fist, she decides to change the world to ensure her survival. Her boots stand firm on the grassy ground, ready for what's to come. Surrounded by a shower of gold coins, Eilette resolves to purchase an item she's been delaying. With a swift grab, she picks up a simple stick from the grass. Raising the stick high, a notification announces she has unlocked the skill Strong Body Level 1 through physical training. She reflects that awakening her aura is the final, difficult stage of swordsmanship, requiring weapon mastery and a body like steel. With a confident grin, she declares that as a transmigrator with perks, she will master it in no time. With a whoosh and a wish, her determined cries echo as she practices swinging her stick. Bia, the black-haired girl, calls out to Allie, saying they should get going. With a wobble, Eilette appears as a strange pink blob, agreeing they should leave as a shocked Bia cries out her name. The exhausted pink creature wonders why this weird transformation is happening. It cries out in frustration, wondering why its proficiency isn't increasing. The scene transitions to a grand temple with gleaming white pillars under a bright sun. The view pans across the rows of stately pillars and an ornate golden gate. Eilette sits glumly on the steps of the temple, holding her training stick. The voice that shapes the world explains aura awakening requires professional help, making Eilette realize it's a matter of technique. She concludes she needs an instructor and wonders if the item shop sells workout videos, just as one for aura training appears. She looks up in pure disbelief, asking, "What?" A chibi Eilette sits frozen in a state of utter confusion. She turns away, still looking completely bewildered. A voice calls from down here, and her golden cross necklace begins to glow brightly. A stunning woman with long, radiant blonde hair appears before a startled Eilette. The beautiful blonde woman offers a gentle, knowing smile. Eilette stares in wide-eyed shock, questioning what she's seeing. Surrounded by a golden light, the woman crosses her arms confidently. Flustered, Eilette looks down at her hands as feathers float around her. The mysterious blonde woman looks down at her with a warm smile. Eilette nervously asks if she is a friend of Cardinal Cartalaya. She asks if the cardinal is a healthy old granny now, and the blonde woman confirms she is well. The blonde woman then offers to help Eilette find an instructor. Eilette asks if she's serious. As the woman explains, she was once called a saint, but that wasn't her real job. With a dramatic da-dun, she puts on sunglasses, revealing she's the Vatican's most feared drill instructor. With a sudden FWIP, the instructor lunges forward, shouting her goal, to recruit Eilette. Eilette is left completely stunned, her mind blank. She remains utterly baffled by the sudden turn of events. A loud din introduces a well-equipped training ground. Eilette expresses her surprise at finding a training ground in the manor as the instructor watches her. The instructor comments on the manor having a training ground, and Eilette turns, noting its old and unmanaged state. The instructor dismisses Eilette's suggestion to start with stretches for the shabby grounds. With a powerful shove and a yank, the instructor orders 20 laps, sending Eilette flying with a yelp. Eilette scurries frantically, as the instructor yells at her to move faster, her cries echoing before a loud thud. Crows caw and squawk across a sunset-colored sky. Eilette lies face down and motionless in the dirt. With a FSHHH of dissolving light, the instructor praises Eilette's work and tells her to rest for tomorrow. Eilette turns her dirt-stained face, panting that she's dying and can't even get a refund. Crying for help, she says she can't get up, as a strange creature appears in a burst of purple energy. As she lies defeated, notifications show various gods mocking her F-class stamina, which she finds incredibly upsetting. As Eilette lies in the mud, the voice that shapes the world gets angry at the other gods for laughing and expresses pity for her. Shivering on the cold ground, Eilette tearfully thanks Lord Voice. With a soft whoosh, a system notification from the voice that shapes the world gifts her 30 packs of divine ginseng extract. Eilette looks at the golden box in confusion as two other gods, the scale that judges souls and the architect of the skyscraper of suffering, are shocked. A description explains the divine ginseng extract grants unlimited stamina and explosive muscle regeneration, allowing a week's worth of workouts in just 2 hours. Eilette marvels at the incredible item while other gods gossip about Lord Voice spending his entire salary, how meager it must be, and that he should find a new job. With a loud rip, she tears open a packet of the extract. She quickly drinks the contents with a determined gulp. Her eyes fly open with a sudden thump as she asks, "WH, what?" Floating through a field of sunflowers, she feels a surge of unlimited stamina and explosive muscle regeneration. The winged divine ginseng extract is touted as the ultimate physical recovery item, boasting boosts to immunity, memory, and fatigue resistance.
She exclaims that her body suddenly feels incredibly light.
With a powerful V-womb, her golden cross necklace begins to glow brightly. The beautiful blonde instructor appears in a shower of golden sparkles, asking if she was called. Re-energized, Eilette leaps up and eagerly declares she wants to train more. The blonde instructor is shocked by her sudden recovery, commenting that she looks much more resilient than she seems. Eilette smiles brightly, confirming she is resilient because she has to be. She thinks about the expensive gift from Lord Voice, resolving not to waste a single second of its effects. The instructor likes her spirit and orders 20 more laps, and Eilette dashes off with a cheerful, "Yes, ma'am." With a series of energetic jumps and leaps, she trains tirelessly, marveling as her experience points increase rapidly. With a zoom, her simple figure speeds along as she cheers for Lord Voice and his expensive items. She scurries across a rooftop with a determined cry. The instructor adjusts her sunglasses with a FWIP, thinking that Eilette's physical strength is growing at a frightening rate. With a mighty hi-ya, Eilette works out on the bars as the instructor muses that legends are simply born different. As Eilette cheers for her EXP gains, the instructor grins, realizing she is enjoying the rigorous training. A muddy brown boot takes a decisive step. Surrounded by swirling energy, Eilette takes another heavy step. A notification announces she has reached strong body level 17 as she gives a fierce, determined look. With a flinch, she faces the smiling instructor. The blonde instructor calmly announces it's time to move on to the next stage. With a loud clatter, an assortment of weapons falls to the ground. The instructor asks Ailette if she knows the other name for aura users. Explaining they are also called sword masters, the instructor materializes a golden sword with a FSHHH and asks Ailette if she knows why. Bathed in a golden light, the instructor explains it is because they have reached the pinnacle of swordsmanship. She holds the glowing sword as its power emanates with a soft shwoom. She demonstrates a powerful whoosh, explaining that their strength will increase with their skills. With enough training, she continues, they can become tougher than the strongest metals. Ailette gasps, "Wow," in amazement, as the instructor displays her radiant power. A chibi Ailette bounces with excitement, calling the instructor cool and asking if she can do that too someday. The instructor tells her she must first choose a weapon to master. Her demeanor shifting, the instructor declares the return of the drill instructor from hell, promising endless humiliation for new recruits. Ailette swallows with a gulp, her expression resolute. She gives a sly grin, thinking that the instructor is the lucky one, revealing her blessing of extreme growth, a perk that grants 5 times the skill experience. She declares herself the best student around. The instructor tells her to start with the sword and follow her form. Ailette rapidly masters the sword and then the spear, earning praise from the instructor, who warns the bow will be harder. She effortlessly reaches bow mastery level 2, aiming with perfect form. The chibi instructor is left utterly speechless and confused. As the instructor vows she will taste despair with the whip, Ailette instantly masters that too. The instructor stands stunned, asking if she's a monster, while Ailette darkly wonders what despair even feels like. With a cool clack, the instructor tells Ailette to pick a primary and secondary weapon. With a quick FWIP, Ailette chooses a sword and a whip. The blonde instructor looks surprised by her unconventional choice. Ailette stands ready, presenting the sword and whip with determination. A flashback introduces Agnes Azlet, a revered saint and hero of the continent. Agnes was a skilled master who stopped the Ice Palace dungeon burst. The narrator explains that Agnes became a weapons master in her teens, researched her own unique style, and created the powerful whip sword. Back in the present, the instructor notes that the whip sword is extremely powerful. She asks Ailette if she is sure she wants to learn such a difficult technique. Ailette enthusiastically confirms that she wants to learn the whip sword. The instructor warns that things are about to get tough, and a determined Ailette cheers, ready for the challenge. Later, Ailette dozes off while studying, letting out a loud snore. Bia calls her name, startling a sleepy Ailette with an eek. With a rub of her eyes, Ailette insists she's fine, listing her packed schedule of training, prayers, farming, and research. Bia reminds her that she's also busy with heiress lessons, facing tremendous amounts of homework and daily tests. Bia notes that Ailette still found time to organize merchants for the Rhodoline potions, much to the delight of the potion maker. Ailette thanks Bia for making things go smoothly, but admits she's nervous about whether the potions will actually sell. Bia confidently reassures her, stating she knows how good their potions are. Ailette cheers loudly, declaring that they will sell a bunch and get rich. She dreams of earning enough money to buy a genre change voucher and finally escape her difficult survival story. A system notification displays the genre change voucher, an item that can alter the story's genre for the price of 10 billion cash. Realizing she needs to promote their goods, Ailette mumbles about getting influencers, leaving Bia to ask what she means. The scene transitions to a bright, sunny day over a town. The town market is full of the lively bustle of people. With a soft clink, a hand places a potion for sale on a wooden shelf. A customer carrying a pickaxe looks at the new potions with curiosity. As the man considers the potions, an elderly villager with a cane makes a frantic dash past, shouting that Fenrir is in town. With each step, a group of muscular men fawn over Fenrir's glorious muscles with a collective kia. As his pecs bulge, Fenrir thinks to himself that his muscles seem to be in a great mood. The incredibly muscular Fenrir smirks, thinking it's a great day to keep his muscles happy. The scene shifts to the contaminated crystal cave, a C-class dungeon. Inside, 2 miners are startled by the loud wham and whack of mining. Another thud echoes as men work in the dark cave. The sound of a loud crack fills the air as rock begins to shatter. Fenrir stands before a wall of rock as it begins to crumble. He lets out a mighty flex, satisfied that his pecs and erector muscles are feeling very happy. With a powerful stretch, he decides to placate his upset deltoids and lats. The other miners are in awe, exclaiming "wow" at his huge pecs and rock-hard abs. Fenrir spots a nearby hourglass, realizing it's time to take his muscle supplement potion. With a deep gulp, he downs the contents of a glass vial. He struggles to swallow, thinking the potion tastes horrible. He reflects that, though its bitterness paralyzes his tongue, he must endure it for his muscles. He resolves to get back to work, and gives his pickaxe a mighty raise. He brings the pickaxe down in a powerful swing. A final, deafening wham shatters the stone before him. The other miners are amazed, saying Fenrir can pave roads with a single swing and rivals an aura user's power with muscles alone. With a whack in the background, one miner asks another if he's new here, and the man confirms he's just working for the day. As a bam echoes, the first miner explains that Fenrir is admired by all, but is seen as unapproachable. He remarks that the constant thwack from Fenrir's pickaxe sounds like a monster is coming. The new miner scoffs, saying the boss monster was defeated decades ago, just as the ground begins to squirm and crack beneath them. With a loud crack and a deafening boom, a monstrous red maw bursts from the ground, horrifying a young miner. A massive, scaly limb slams down with a brutal wham, crushing the earth where a person once stood. The miners scatter in terror, with one screaming that it's a monster and another crying out in fear for the newbie. A calm voice tells a fallen man on the ground, "Don't worry." Fenrir holds the terrified young miner in his powerful arms, reassuring him that he is safe. With a confident grin, Fenrir asks if the young man is all right, and the blushing miner nervously confirms that he is. The monster's gaping mouth reappears with a slam and a crash, as the remaining miners run for their lives, screaming for help. Fenrir scowls, identifying the creature as an acid worm, a C-class boss monster that only aura wielders can defeat, concluding the miners are doomed on their own. Releasing the young miner, he tells him to go hide somewhere safe. With a determined step, Fenrir approaches the massive worm. His gloved hand tightens into a fist with a resolute clench. As the monster's maw gapes wide to swallow another miner, the man screams for help. Fenrir leaps heroically towards the monster's open mouth. A cloud of dust and debris obscures the immediate aftermath. With a thunderous wham, Fenrir lands a devastating blow from inside the creature's mouth, creating a massive shockwave. As the monster lets out a pained scree, blood spurts from its wounds, and the miners realize it's Fenrir. With a sickening snap and crack, an onlooker realizes he's ripping the monster apart with his bare muscles. Fenrir strains with all his might, forcing the monster's jaws apart. His eyes glow with a powerful flash as he lets out a grunt of pure effort. With a final, mighty rip, he tears the beast in two. Blood and gore spurt and splatter across the cave as the terrified miners watch. The miners stare in disbelief, then erupt into a massive cheer as they realize Fenrir tore the monster apart and defeated it. Fenrir stands victorious as a voice from the crowd gives 3 cheers for his muscles. The crowd chants praises for his lats, pecs, deltoids, and erector muscles, while sweat drips down his face. With a loud clatter, Fenrir looks on in horror, exclaiming that all his muscle supplement potions have shattered. He cries, "No!" in despair over potential muscle loss, just as the miner he saved takes a step toward him. With a deep bow, the young man thanks Fenrir for saving him and offers his own muscle supplement potion in gratitude. Fenrir humbly says there's no need for thanks, but the young man insists, stating there's nothing worse than muscle loss. With a soft clack, Fenrir graciously accepts the potion, thanking the young man. He examines the potion bottle with a clink, curious about the unknown alchemist named Rodel. He takes a drink and is instantly shocked by the unexpected flavor. With a sudden flash, he marvels at the delicious potion, which tastes like a feast of sweet meat, steak, and shrimp, while also providing perfect supplements that make his muscles scream with joy. He holds the potion high with a triumphant raise, shouting that Alchemist Rodel is amazing and the potion is absolutely brilliant. The other miners murmur amongst themselves, noting that if the potion impressed Fenrir, Alchemist Rodel must be incredible. The scene shifts to a grand estate as a man urgently calls for Mr. Rodeline. A frantic merchant reports an emergency. The month's supply of potions is already gone, and clients from other regions are demanding more. Mr. Rodeline, Ailette's father, is shocked as the merchant confirms they need to restock immediately. Ailette realizes they've hit it big, and a system notification from the voice that shapes the world encourages her that the genre change voucher is within reach. As the architect of the skyscraper of suffering insists the current genre is better, a chibi Ailette argues that the childcare genre is her unfulfilled dream. With a ding, the critic for balance delivers a crushing blow, stating she'll be an adult by the time she saves 10 billion cash, cracking her resolve. Her father excitedly lifts a stone-faced Ailette, promising to get her anything she wants after they make more potions. But she thinks it's too late. She sighs in resignation, thinking, oh well. Ailette thinks that at least it's nice seeing her dad so happy, as he joyfully exclaims that her talent has finally been recognized. Renewed with purpose, Ailette declares they should work their butts off, and her father enthusiastically agrees. Crates are packed high with hundreds of freshly made, sparkling potions. With a collective whew, Ailette, her father, and the pink-haired boy wipe sweat from their brows, exhausted but proud. A cute diagram shows their roles. Her father the manufacturer, the boy his assistant, and Ailette in charge of flavoring, though she now wants a break from potions. The pink-haired boy peeks at their massive inventory, dreaming of the riches they'll earn. He asks Ailette what she wants to do once they're rich, and she pauses to think. Ailette declares she'll spend most of it at the item shop, but will use the rest to send him to the Night Academy, moving him to tears as he whispers her name. The pink-haired boy proudly declares he'll spend his money on Ailette, who shyly thanks him. With a happy hug, their father embraces them both, wishing their mother could see this moment. Ailette says with a pout that when they're rich, she wants to go to the house where they used to live with their mom. As a photo of her mother holding a baby, Ailette, is shown, she reflects that the original character also lost her mother, but not during childbirth. Her father explains sadly that her mom was a difficult person who would randomly pop up and disappear, Aylette starts to speculate, but with the FWIP, the pink-haired boy covers her mouth and asks their father how he met their mom. Her father begins the story of how he found their mother injured and unconscious in the mountains while he was studying at the Golden Ivory Tower. He recounts bringing her home and nursing her to health, explaining that she had lost her memory, and their love blossomed as she stayed with him. He fondly recalls her bringing home wild animals for him to cook, much to his horror, as Aylette questions if she was just bossing him around. He explains that she vanished when Aylette was 4, and he suspects her memories returned, causing her to go back to the different world she seemed to be from. Looking at a shelf of glowing potions, Aylette asks her dad if he hates their mom for leaving them. He gives her a loving kiss on the forehead, saying he's grateful she gave him 2 wonderful treasures. Aylette is touched, but thinks to herself that she doesn't believe her mom meant to abandon them. The pink-haired boy reveals he saw their mom on the day she disappeared, remembering that she suddenly got out of bed. In a flashback, he recalls seeing his mother walk out with a hoe and a plow while he asked where she was going. A glowing silhouette of his mother replies that some livestock got out and she's gonna catch them. Aylette and her father stare blankly, confused by the strange story. Aylette springs up with a start, questioning the livestock story and realizing her mom might not be an ordinary character. Her father anxiously frets, worrying that livestock was code for a wild boar and that she got into trouble. Aylette smiles sweetly, realizing how deeply her dad must love her mom. She wonders wistfully what it feels like to have a mother. A brief sunny memory shows the family of 4 playing happily outside their old home. Her mood slumps with a droop as she remembers she isn't allowed to leave the manor. With a sudden gasp, she exclaims, "Lord Voice!" as a system notification announces a protest from the critic for balance about a quest reward. She springs toward her father with an idea, realizing they must have lived in a duchy of Heathvenrear, where the Golden Ivory Tower is. With a determined dash, she runs off, leaving her father to wonder what she's doing. She runs excitedly, declaring they need to make another week's worth of potions to fund their trip to the duchy to see their old home. The pink-haired boy chimes in, telling his dad he'll help too so they can all visit the house together. Their father looks at the boy, touched by his words. Tears of happiness glisten in his eyes. The father declares it their first family vacation, but Aylette playfully teases that he's only interested in finding their mom. The scene changes as a powerful man takes a heavy step forward. An attendant takes a step to greet him, respectfully addressing him as Your Grace. With a dramatic dun-dun, the muscular blonde man is introduced as Aaron Jake Heathvenrear, the Grand Duke of the Duchy. The Grand Duke asks about the urgent matter, complaining that skipping his weight training has made his muscles upset. The attendant bows his head, preparing to deliver important news. He announces they have found a trace of the Duke's daughter, shocking him. With a startled jolt, the Grand Duke demands to know where she is, and his attendant reveals she's surprisingly close. With a quick FWIP, the Grand Duke pulls his attendant over to a desk. With a tap, a finger points to a location on a map, revealing they found traces left by her sword in a nearby dungeon. The Grand Duke looks on with hope, wondering if he'll finally see his long-lost daughter, Althea. His attendant watches him with a look of sympathy. The attendant reflects on how the Grand Duke spent years in dejection after his daughter left, only pulling through by taking up bodybuilding. The Duke turns to Flex, asking if his aide can hear his biceps laughing with anticipation, while the man thinks he's a bit too serious. The scene shifts as Aylette and the pink-haired boy run joyfully through a town.